time to take on the mighty mountain. Yes, indeed, it is a RaceRoom special event as we head to the Bathurst 2-hour. A race is always filled with drama, a race that's always filled with excitement. A race that I get to share the comedy booth with Zach Sweeney. It's Lewis McGlade, Zach Sweeney in for the 2-hour race. We've got qualifying coming up ahead. And of course, it's a qualifying session that will be pretty important. It is a hard track to pass at.
It is indeed. Yeah, good evening, everyone. Looking forward to the Bathurst 2 hours. A very challenging circuit. I think that needs very little introduction. I do think track position going to be very important, but equally that strategical element, 2 hours, we will likely be expecting a few pit stops along the way, whether that's for tyres and fuel or for damage. We'll have to wait and see on that department. But yeah, qualifying, incredibly important. The good news is they get half an hour to set those lap times, so plenty of opportunity, but a very long and very technical lap to do it at.
Yeah, it is one of the most exciting laps. You know, it's one of my favoured circuits on planet Earth. It's a tricky circuit which has such a great combination of corners. We've seen it race in real world and sim racing relatively recently, and we've seen the dramas that come with. It's brutally difficult to get around. It's one that can catch you out in a moment's notice.
Yeah, 100%. You know, you let your concentration lapse for a second, and that's all it takes for your race to be completely thrown in the bin. Obviously, twist turns all throughout the race, and it's not just yourself you have to worry about and your driving, it's also the driving of other people. You are often a passenger in some of these incidents, especially if you time it at the wrong point, and like I say, you are largely at the mercy of other people and their talent. So that's going to be something these drivers are going to be weighing up. How do they minimize those incidents? And 100% this is going to be a race of pace. Definitely is going to be a part of it, but consistency and attrition, if you can nail those two things, and a bit of luck probably sprinkled in there as well, then you're going to do quite well over the next 2 hours.
I'd rather be lucky than good. That's something that I'm sure a lot of drivers will be thinking about. Obviously, here's a little bit of a look at the iconic skyline through the S's into the Dipper. Of course, the run down into the elbow. It's a real fun part of the track. Obviously, you're navigating the walls. You're almost brushing alongside them. That's one of the main things around here. But of course, in a 2-hour race, we will be having pit stops through this race. Obviously, it's GT3 machinery that take to the circuit. Before we start talking about the ins and outs of those, I think it's probably a good time to talk about some of the drivers we've got racing out there. Tomas Ribeiro almost seemed like the driver to beat a little bit here on RaceRoom in the recent past. Of course, the defending champion of this event did win it 12 months ago. Also, the winner at Macau, obviously not that long ago, the winner of a whole host of events, winner, of course, of the RaceRoom Super Touring Championship, if memory serves. He's won quite a lot recently.
He's pretty good, to say the least, Tomas Ribeiro. So look out for him, and I would say there's quite a lot of similarity from Macau that Tomas Ribeiro can take coming into Bathurst in terms of the ruthless consistency that you need, and that level of commitment. Very, very slim margins of error. So I think Ribeiro is going to be one to look out for. Sort of other people I'm sort of seeing on the little list that we've got, the likes of Lucas Müller, who's off the back, of course, of a very successful campaign in the DTM Esports Championship in 2025, looking to jump back into things in 2026 and get himself back towards the sharp end of the field. So yeah, plenty of talent to look out for at the top end of RaceRoom Esports, and yeah, like I say, very familiar names that I'm sure we're all very well accustomed with. But at the end of the day, you can come in as the favourite, and Bathurst can very quickly claim you as one of its victims. So yeah, don't count out anything or anyone until the bitter end.
Yeah, also other drivers, Bo Dixon, Tomas Gontier. There's a few to look at that I'm sure we'll be seeing navigate the circuit in qualifying in the near future. Speaking of cars then, let's talk about it. Obviously, we've got GT3s they'll be taking on, so you'll see your classic ones that you're used to, BMWs, Porsches. Hopefully someone's wrestling around a Lamborghini. We'll be saying goodbye to the Huracan in the near future. Obviously, in the world of motorsport, we've already said goodbye to it. The new one will be racing, what was it, next month, I think, at Sebring. I think we'll see the brand new Lamborghini head second. Not a V10. Disgusting.
What is it?
It's a V8.
In a Lambo. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Not a vibe, is it? Not a vibe. It looks alright though, but it's no Huracan. But obviously, we'll see a lot of Porsches. I'm sure. What's Tomas Ribeiro? Tomas Ribeiro has taken the Ferrari around the circuit, a little bit of the 296 action. We've got the M4 Evo and the regular one, if I remember correctly. They say Porsches and Mercs and whatnot. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is indeed. What I am looking at is quite a mix, in all fairness. Actually, I'm seeing a lot of the rear engine Porsches, a couple of the front engine Beamers as well, which is quite nice. A couple of Mercs as well. Of course, the Ferrari, the mid engine type thing. I'm not seeing the Lambo, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, nice to see there is a little bit of a mix, and the different ideologies of these cars are coming through and showcasing that they probably are going to be quick. I think we'll very quickly see which one is going to be the meta as such, and which one maybe does come through. But ultimately, if your car is a tenth or two a lap quicker, that's all well and good. But if you throw it into the wall, that's going to lose you a hell of a lot more than a tenth or two. So I think consistency above all else as we make our way into qualifying, and probably one of the more satisfying laps to hook together around Bathurst.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I raced the Bathurst 12-hour a few years ago elsewhere in sim racing. Me and my I was going to say friend, I'm not sure I go that far. Dan Kell, we were teammates behind the wheel of a BMW M4, and I was sent a setup from a very, very big team in the world of sim racing, and I gave it one lap and thought, absolutely not. And the reason is that it was undrivable to a mere mortal like myself. Kind of the same thing when it comes to the cars. You've got to pick a car up which is going to work well in your favour and something which you're going to be comfortable behind the wheel of. Yeah, if you're taking a car which is already pushing the limit, yeah, you're not going to have a good run. Up the hill, we'll see them enter this mountain complex. Obviously, turn 1, extremely difficult. Turn 2, up towards the cutting. This is where things get narrow, get exciting, though.
Yeah, indeed. So, of course, you're braking pretty much at the kink as the track kinks. You're letting the car drift out wide, and if you've got your tyres up to temperature, this should be flat all the way through this right-left chicane. If you're brave enough to keep it pinned, use a little bit of that curb, and then comes the undulation, using the compression to help the car grip up, and then you are absolutely on the limit. Over the crest, though, and through the left towards the descent down the mountain, and again, this is really where you can earn your tenths.
Yeah, look good going through McPhillamy, now through Skyline, dropping down the hill into the S's, clipping a bit too much of that curb on the left-hand side, pushed you out. You actually kind of want to, if I'm fair, I said clip too much. You almost want to mount more of it than that and flick it over that curb to the left part of the S's. Dipper ticked off, Forest Elbow ticked off, Conrod straight, that's where we're at, down towards one of the fastest corners in motorsport, certainly the fastest corner in Australia. The extremely quick right-hander at the chase that brings you into that tricky braking zone. Use that road on the left-hand side, flick it through the right-hander, heavily onto the brakes and drop it down to about second gear. Just dodging that curb on the left-hand side because that one will really spit the car out towards the exit on the right, but beautifully managed. Finally down into the last part of the corner for Bo Dixon, and out of the last corner at Murray's onto the start-finish straight once again, and we'll see what lap time it is going to be across the line. Bo Dixon goes to third. As much as a 20-minute qualifying session here, Zach, obviously they don't have to do a full outlap. They actually start from before the final corner, and there's no other cars on track for them to navigate.
Yeah, so it removes a lot of the variables of a qualifying session, but of course it is a long lap to mess up. You're using a big chunk of your time with each attempt, even if you don't use an outlap, but we can see here Bo Dixon going for consecutive runs. I think the first one just to get those tyres ideally up to temperature, then maybe the second one to really start pushing. Thomas Ribeiro, though, as we expected, the one setting the benchmark. I would imagine a low 2-minute is probably exactly where we want to be, maybe dipping into the 59s. We'll see what the Portuguese driver can do over the next 15 minutes of driving. A good benchmark, though, coming in from Bo Dixon. It seemed to be quite a tidy lap. That's the thing around Bathurst, is that any small discrepancy or a bit of hesitation definitely does get exaggerated. You can very quickly lose quite a lot of time from not doing too much wrong. Thomas Ribeiro towards turn number 2 at the moment, like I say, setting the pace incredibly close, and looking to me like Porsche does seem to be pretty quick with 3 cars inside the top 5.
Yeah, we do at least get that V10, not quite the same as what it is in the Lamborghini, but very much in the same vein, at least with the 2 Audi R8s that we've got, 3 Audi R8s rather, that we've got across the field. There is a completion bar as to how much of the lap they have done. And look at this, up towards, through Sullivan Park towards McPhillamy. So fast around this part of the circuit. Thankfully, as much as we are in sim racing, we're trying to replicate reality as much as possible. No kangaroos dancing around the circuit to drive past or into, as the Bathurst 12 Hour was.
Yes, and well, also no virtual marshals as well around the circuit, which again is a discussion I won't get into too much. Escape bar is your the escape button is the escape key. That's the one. Is your best friend around Bathurst if you do make a bit of a mistake. Yeah, I mean, I think kangaroos would be an interesting element of RNG to throw into sim racing, so I'm both glad and not that they don't exist in the world of sim racing. But let's see what Thomas Ribeiro can do in terms of lap time anyway. 2 purple sectors for himself and Lucas Müller as well in P2.
Been a very impressive lap that we've seen on board with Thomas Ribeiro into the brakes final corner at Murray's. Flicks it through that left-hander and again avoids that curb on the inside because you don't really want to smack it. It's a little bit too large for these GT3s to wrestle their way through. Improves by 0.2 of a second. Ribeiro at present, the comfortable driver on pole position. And do you know what? I'm going to say it now. Even through the next 13.5 minutes, I am not sure anyone's going to particularly challenge that time that much. Very impressive from Ribeiro. You see Matej Mikovic through the final complex and down towards the last turn.
Indeed so. Of course, the Hungarian, a very regular name at the front end of RaceRoom Esports across the last few years. He's been incredibly quick, and no matter what type of car or type of championship you put him into, the Hungarian goes up into P6 and the only front-engine car inside the top 10 for now. Tap of the wall there from Ferdinand Coughlin on the exit of the hairpin that leads you onto the Conrad Straight. The German at the moment sat 4th, but definitely a lap that leaves a little bit more to be desired around Bathurst. I do agree, though, Thomas Ribeiro, and he's even pushing it further. He's gone purple to the first sector once again with a 2:05. Could we see a 59 by the end of this session? I mean, I think if anyone's going to challenge him, it'll be Müller or Dixon. I think they're probably the only two that have a realistic shot of doing it. But yeah, Ribeiro on pure pace is largely unmatchable, I think, in RaceRoom.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's sometimes just how it is. Sometimes top dog is top dog. Ferdinand Coughlin through the final corner, invalidated the lap time. Lucas Müller flying in that first sector at present. Did see a question in the chat. Will the race follow this? The answer to that question is yes, indeed. We'll have a very short breather between qualifying and the race, but by very short, I literally mean a couple of minutes. They do not have much time to jump out of the car, run to the loop, run back into the rig, and get themselves ready for 2 hours of frantic racing. I'm sure they've already got their strategies locked into their brain as to roughly what they're going to do and when they're going to stop. And outside of that, it's go with the flow.
It is indeed. I think, again, with Bathurst, a lot of it has to be done, with the circumstances of the race. Track position, very important. Do you come in a lap earlier or wait a lap beyond to come into the pit lane just to get yourself out of traffic or anything like that? But yeah, largely these guys would have done the practice. I don't think many people would be jumping into a race like the Bathurst 2 hours with minimal practice. If they are, they're remarkably brave. But these guys have done 2 hour races before. They know what it takes. They know what kind of needs to be done. I would imagine a single stop, whether or not they take tyres, is another thing that remains to be seen. But yeah, absolutely, at least a stop, I would imagine, probably splitting the race in half. I would say plus or minus 5 minutes to the hour is what we'll be seeing. But eager to be surprised. And with the tyre discussion, again, something I think we'll have to wait and be seen. I did message Lucas Müller to sort of ask what the strategy is. And I think I just missed his reply window because obviously he was jumping into qualifying. So I don't have an answer from one of the pros just yet, but I do know that he's feeling less than confident coming into this event.
Fair enough. I mean, look, that's just sometimes how it goes, but especially when you're going up against Ribeiro, when you're going up against Bo Dixon. By the way, did improve up to second position, but instantly got removed from that as Lucas Müller went up into second himself. We're looking at Jarno Weiss, who has set a purple first sector. So clearly, because we've seen a few purple first sectors, clearly people have pace on the Ferrari 296 that currently sits atop the leaderboard in that opening sector. But as soon as you go through the mid part and start dropping down the mountain, that's where Thomas Ribeiro's confidence and the power of the Ferrari 296 does manage to pull fair distance away from the rest of the field. To 6/10 off of pole position for Jarno Weiss and up into 4th position. Big gap between 1st, 2nd and 3rd and the rest of the field.
Yeah, pretty comfortable is the top 3. Ribeiro, the gap closing though. Lucas Müller is chipping away at it in that Porsche. Now under 2/10. Bo Dixon as well. It is remarkably close. Then, like we say, a little bit of a gap to the 3 Germans of Weiss, Roche and Coughlin. But again, in and amongst themselves, incredibly close. And I have to say, I'm pretty impressed by that. You know, there's plenty of opportunities around Bathurst to gain lap time. It's a very punishing circuit. And yet, for the majority of the field, we're seeing no sort of more than half a tenth of a second in between sort of each pack of cars, if you like. The top 3, the rest of the top 10. Incredibly close in terms of their lap time, which I think bodes well for a pretty decent race ahead of us, especially if everyone, for the most part, can keep it clean. But we'll wait and see in that department. But yeah, I mean, I just think it goes to show how competitive the top level of RaceRoom Esports is, and definitely over the last couple of years has really tightened up towards the sharp end. You know, these guys are masters at what they do, especially on this platform, and I think it's only right that the lap times, because of that, showcase that. Bo Dixon seems to be on a pretty decent lap as well towards the top end of the field, so he's knocking on the door potentially of finding his way onto the front row, but I'm sure the Falcon Sim Racing of Müller will maybe have an answer for that into the final 8 minutes of qualifying.
It's handy, isn't it, having the Falcon Sim Racing car and a Falcon livery. Obviously, I've just commentated on a fair amount of Falcon Sim Racing. Congratulations to them for winning the Digital Nürburgring Langstrecke Series a little bit earlier on in the day. That was in the GT3 category over in that neck of the woods, looking to seal a second GT3 victory on the day as well. That would be not a bad way to begin this weekend. Lucas Müller, again, like you say, like Bo Dixon, setting a solid 1st and 2nd sector. Bo Dixon obviously will be a little bit ahead of Lucas Müller, so we'll see that time coming first. And there it is. Bo Dixon moves up onto the front row of the grid, about a 10th off of Tomas Ribeiro, who he himself has improved in that 3rd sector. Blanchard goes to 4th within half a second of Tomas Ribeiro.
Yeah, so like I say, it's incredibly tight at the sharp end, and still probably time for 2, maybe 3 more laps in qualifying. Tomas Ribeiro, of course, even he himself is finding more time in that 1st sector, so like I say, probably a little bit more on the table for him. Lucas Müller across the line, let's see what he can set. Is it a personal best? Not quite on that occasion, so he's going to be going again. And yeah, cutthroat at the top end. I wonder how consequential the qualifying is going to be between the top 3. How much of a difference is track position going to make? And well, I think largely the question is going to be who's going to be the most consistent when we do get into that 2-hour race. One small mistake can bode disaster. Tomas Ribeiro, though, on a flying lap up in front. Let's see. The gap has been quite close, and Bo Dixon and Lucas Müller has been chipping away at the gap for the last few minutes. Let's see if Ribeiro can wedge it back open once again and feel a little bit more comfortable in this qualifying session.
Good to see Dalsenberg then seeing all 27 of our cars get a lap onto the board. Nice to see the bright pink of Roxy as well out on the racetrack. And there was also another improvement. Spiegel goes up into 10th position. Did say Matej Mikiewicz improved to 6th. And we did see Weiss had a purple 1st sector. That was immediately turned down as soon as Ribeiro crossed the line. Improves to a 2:03. Very impressive from Ribeiro. Again, moves that benchmark a little bit further with 6 minutes left to go of the session. As soon as the session comes to a close, as soon as we see the checkered flag come out, that is the session over. You will not get time to finish your laps. You have to have all of your laps done within the allotted time limit.
Yeah, there's no finishing it. Doesn't care, doesn't matter if you're on the quickest lap Bathurst has ever seen. Now, as soon as that time is 6-0, we are done and dusted. Probably be feeling a little bit frustrated if I was Bo Dixon or Lucas Müller, thinking, oh yeah, Ribeiro is catchable. You know, that lap time is attainable, only a 10th, and then, oh wait, brilliant, no, he's opened it back up to 3/10 again, and they're going to be needing a little bit more. Jack Barton across the line, decent 1st sector, personal best in the middle sector, comes across the line, works his way up into 16th and 0.03 of a second off Christian Orban, the Hungarian. Again, a fantastic driver in the world of RaceRoom, very handy in a touring car. Christian Orban, as are the majority of the Hungarians actually on the at the top end of RaceRoom. The likes of Matej Mikiewicz running really well in the likes of the Trip 6 Esports Super Touring Championship over the last couple of years. They're quite historic and historically successful in that particular championship, and at the moment running inside the, well, just shy of the top half of this field, but like I say, incredibly tight in this qualifying session, as you would sort of expect it to be. Bo Dixon, though, at the sharp end. We talk about Tomas Ribeiro bringing that gap back open to 0.3. Bo Dixon might be looking to close it back down once again.
Yeah, on board though with the BMW of Rune van den Broek through the final complex of the mountain section. Has improved in that middle sector, now works his way down into the chase. We'll await to see if there's an improvement from Bo Dixon's Porsche, whether he was able to close down within a couple of tenths of Tomas Ribeiro, or maybe even do the unthinkable and steal away the provisional pole position. Doutsenberg nearly moves inside the top 10, only to 11th in that Porsche, which we have 9 Porsches in the top 13 positions. Clear Porsche dominance on the mountain today. Van den Broek comes across the line. 1.4 seconds off of the pole, does not improve. Bo Dixon gets to within a tenth and a half of Ribeiro, and unfortunately cannot improve past that point.
So Villeneuve showing what happens if you get it wrong down the hill. Well, down the hill, it most definitely is not a hill. Down the mountain for Bas. Again, it's so easy just to ask a bit too much as you rise over the crest and dip yourself down through Skyline. If you just get the breaking point ever so slightly wrong and wash yourself wide, it very quickly showcases you how punishing the Mount Panorama circuit can be. Niels Doutsenberg, though, searching. He needs just over 0.2 of a second to find his way up into the top 10 and ahead of the Dutchman for a 5th row start in this race. He'll be looking for that. Bo Dixon will be looking to work his way onto pole position in, well, what will be his final lap in qualifying, his final full lap. I think he's going to abort it and give it another go. Not the best of first sectors, and very clever decision there to back out and give himself another go at the opening sector.
Every time I see the side of Bo Dixon's car, I think about where I'm going to be going immediately after this broadcast.
It's true. It's who was it? John Bennett in GB3.
It is Papa's John Bennett owns the Mackies in my area. And I will be visiting that shop. No, I'm going to be a good boy. I'll visit tomorrow morning, it's fine.
So
obviously, it's not great, is it? Jonas right now, 2.5 seconds off of the pole. The entire field separated by 3.1 seconds. And a improving first sector comes in from Lucas Muller. So there is the time there, and again, improves in the second sector. More probably focused on trying to steal away second position rather than trying to take the pole off of Tomas Ribeiro. Bars as well, improving in that Mark VDS Audi R8. Currently in 10th position, has gone purple in the first sector, green in the second, as we take a look at Matej Mikiewicz working his way up the hill.
Yeah, definitely head and shoulders the strongest BMW. The next, of course, is Van den Broek down in 14th. Christian Orban as well in 15th. Head and shoulders clear. He's, well, 7 tenths, actually no, 6 tenths, I'll give him that, 6 tenths quicker than the rest of the BMW field. So Matej Mikiewicz flying the flag very, very well indeed. It seems the mid-engine and the rear-engine cars are particularly strong around Bathurst, keeping the rear end stable as you dip down the mountain, probably a part of that. It's the final 2 minutes, though, of the session. It does mean that anyone on a lap now are on their final 4 laps of the session. Willem Baas comes across the line for the final time. Decent to the first sector, decent to the middle sector. Well, let's see. He doesn't move. Stays in P10 for now. Under a little bit of pressure from Doutsenberg, but slightly comfortable 2 and a bit tenth margin to keep himself inside the top 10. We are going to maybe see a little bit of a shuffle through the lower portions of the field, particularly because of how incredibly tight it is.
All these cars seem to be talking to me. Bo Dixon's car's got a Mackey's logo on the side of it. This one says fat on the front. But Rob Fan is going to come across the line. 19th position at the moment. Improves to 17th. Few purple sectors coming in the hands of Roche, in the hands of Dixon, the hands of Van den Broek as well. But none of them are improving on 2 consecutive sectors. It is only the first sector where they are finding that improvement. I believe it was Matej Mikiewicz maybe moving up into 7th position. There was certainly a switch. I think it was between Coughlin, Mikiewicz, that kind of area. Someone was able to improve only a couple of positions. Christian Orban also improving, riding on board with Jarno Weiss, who has not found any extra time around the circuit. Desperate to find something in this third and final sector.
Yeah, you've got to be committed. I don't really think there's going to be much to be desired, unless he's only like very marginally slower through the opening 2 sectors. Across the line, we'll see. He doesn't need much of an improvement to find his way up a position. Roche makes a huge jump up into P6, but no improvement there from the Audi of Weiss. He stays 5th, which definitely not a bad position to be starting. Definitely towards the sharp end, and crucially, outside of that mid-pack. I'd probably say I'd rather start last than maybe 18th or 19th in this race, purely because at the very least, if you're last, you can kind of lift off and deal with the carnage at your own pace. If you're in that midfield, you can't really do much in terms of stopping because you've got a queue of cars behind you, and also you're at the mercy of those in front of you not to completely throw it away. So going to be a very difficult race ahead of us, I'm sure, but Thomas Ribeiro, clearly the favourite.
Yeah, once again, proving that speed, proving that confidence, proving the comfort and consistency in that Ferrari. Not only was able to do that lap time once, but was able to relatively consistently improve upon it. An extremely impressive qualifying session from one of RaceRoom's best at this moment. I mean, he does seem to be, in a relative sense, almost unbeatable.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves too much. We've still got a 2-hour race, but he's probably, I would say, the favourite. I've seen a little bit of a discussion on the YouTube chat in terms of fuel loads and things. The Porsche does have a slightly more voluminous fuel tank. It's got 120 litres from what I can see compared to 115 in the Ferrari. And from what I have seen, a little bit of fuel saving is required in the Ferrari to make it to the end on one stop. But crucially, Ribeiro has taken pole position, so he's kind of in control of the pace. I mean, if someone's lifting and coasting down the mountain, you're not exactly going to be able to get a move done. So I think that's going to be a nice advantage for Ribeiro to control the pace in the early phases and get some of that fuel saving done and dusted to hopefully make the strategy a little bit more straightforward for him.
Is voluminous a word, though? That's the question.
Absolutely.
Well, we'll come to that in a few moments' time. 2 hours will go onto the clock. Tomas Ribeiro will start from pole position. And down into the opening corner, it's a much better start from Lucas Muller from the second row as he makes it 3 wide down to the opening corner. He's to the outside of Bo Dixon, throwing it in. Tomas Ribeiro's got a little bit too hard into hell corner. Bo Dixon with the up and under. As we rise up mountain straight towards Griffin's Bend, it is the Porsche of Bo Dixon that's found his way into the front of the field. A couple of tenths separates them as they head to the braking zone of turn 2, and the entire field will snake their way around and jostle for position, but it is Dixon leading from Ribeiro, from Muller, from Blanchard, from Weiss as they go side by side for 4th position.
Yeah, now into the cutting for the opening time, and that is disastrous start for Ribeiro and a golden opportunity for Bo Dixon. Now he's the one in control. The question remains, can he get himself into that rhythm and start driving away? I'm sure Ribeiro is going to be having absolutely none of it. Lucas Muller trying to be aggressive in the opening phase as well, and hopefully we can see more of that three-way rivalry between the top 3 over the duration of the next 2 hours. Only a minute in, so a long way to go still, but Weiss as well, a fantastic start from the Audi, already putting a little bit of pressure on Lucas Muller. Now comes the biggest challenge of the opening lap, cold air tyres down the mountain, and of course all 27 of them bunched up as they descend. So far so clean though towards the sharp end as Bo Dixon gets himself into a nice rhythm and opens up a good couple of car lengths actually from Tomas Ribeiro.
Yeah, balancing the brake pedal all the way down the mountain, not being too far away from it really at any point, as Tomas Ribeiro, who is the defending champion of this event, did it in an Audi R8 last year, and again, very impressive it was, but he's going to have to do a little bit of work if he's going to have to do it. If he's going to be able to do it once more, finds the slipstream of Tomas Ribeiro's Porsche. But I think we'll start to. I was going to say going to start to play the long game, and then he gave that little look going through the chase. I will roll back on it. He wants this race lead. I think he's thinking about anything when it comes to fuel numbers. He wants the race lead back. In the background, I think it was Matej Mikiewicz in the GPSE BMW M4 was just a little bit wide going through the chase, and that's allowed Smardzic to come through. Bit of contact between the two of them going through Murray's.
Yeah, a little bit naughty, I would say, from Matej Mikiewicz using the size of that M4 as a little bit of a weapon just to open up the steering on the exit of the final corner, and well, that puts Smardzic down behind Coughlin. We've got a queue of Germans, Spiegel, Coughlin, Smardzic and Dotzenberg from 9th to 12th as they all queue behind Mikiewicz, and here we go, side by side for the lead. Bo Dixon having to go defensive in towards turn number 2.
To the outside, Tomas Ribeiro, that one is not going to work. Drop back into single file running, and they'll probably keep that up the mountain and back down it. Maybe on Conrad towards the end of that. Maybe there is the look. Maybe there's a look into the cutting as you find that second apex. Out wide goes Bo Dixon. A look to the inside from Tomas Ribeiro. He could not find his way through. He is feeling feisty. My goodness, that was a big moment from Tomas Ribeiro.
Yeah, it was. He's getting desperate, I think, here, or at the very least getting aggressive. He doesn't like being the second car on a train. He likes clear air in front of him. Bo Dixon, though, have to respect him. He's, defending very well, putting the car exactly where it needs to be, maybe trying to get into the head of Ribeiro a little bit, because Ribeiro's probably thinking, well, what is this? A challenge? I've not had this for a while. Bo Dixon setting the pace, and what this is actually allowing is Lucas Muller to get himself back into the battle. We ride on board with Tomas Ribeiro, of course, as they work their way back onto the Conrad Straight. Bo Dixon would very much like some rear gunner support from Lucas Müller just to maybe get Tomas Ribeiro off his back for a lap or two, but into the slipstream towards the chase, and then of course into the chicane. That gap is coming down. Bo Dixon is going to have to well, defend very hard to keep this position.
Oh, he looks to the outside going into the chase. Is he going to fire it all the way around the outside? He's got the run towards the apex, and it does seem as though the race lead might switch round, but Bo Dixon is going to hold firm. It's been a while since I've seen Bo Dixon be this strong. I remember back in the Cupra Sim Racing Series all those years ago, he was actually a fantastic runner in that championship. Very different style of racing here in the GT3s. We've seen some great flashes of speed from Bo Dixon. We're seeing it again thus far this afternoon. 5 cars for the race lead, and Dixon, Ribeiro, Müller, Weiss and Roche.
Yeah, this is not what I'd expect, actually, from the opening stint of a 2-hour race at Bathurst. This level of racing. Of course, Ribeiro, very nice job there to get it stopped into the chicane and give Bo Dixon the space, and very good bravery from the Brit, who once again has to go defensive in towards turn number 2. It's the outside line for the Ferrari. Doesn't quite have the agility to go the long way around, or does it? Foot to the floor, now squeezing his way to the inside of the cutting. Bo Dixon forced to give him some space. They'll run side by side going through. Tomas Ribeiro back down the inside. No way is Dixon going to go the long way around. He just gets urged out. Tomas Ribeiro forced to concede just a little bit of space in that race to the apex. But, well, once again, the Ferrari back into the race lead. He had to work for it, though. A little bit of a twitch as they just ascend up the mountain.
Unbelievable racing as they head their way up the mountain, down towards McPhillamy Park now. And that preparation for Skyline. Tomas Ribeiro, race leader. That was an incredible couple of laps that's found his way back into the front of this race. Bo Dixon, though, will be hungry to sneak his way back through. Dropping down through the dipper, now into the elbow. Find that braking point just right, and you can see that Porsche looming large in the mirrors for Tomas Ribeiro. Bit of a kick of oversteer coming in from Bo Dixon. I think that's going to thwart any response from him on immediate effect going down into the chase, but potentially on the run up the hill once more, there might be a bit of a look at the end of Mountain Straight.
Find out, of course, in the slipstream. Definitely proven to be pretty strong. Tomas Ribeiro under a bit of pressure. Bo Dixon, though, opting not to go for the move on this occasion. No moves in and amongst the top 5 either. I have to say, at this level, that I'm remarkably impressed by the level of racecraft that we've seen there. To go side by side for that long around a circuit like this is incredible. Of course, longevity, definitely a thought in some of these drivers' minds. In some cases, probably didn't seem like it in how aggressive they were being. But, you know, giving space and making sure they make it through cleanly, definitely a priority towards the sharp end. Not the cleanest of runs through turn number 1 for Bo Dixon, though. And that is allowing Tomas Ribeiro to just build a bit of a gap. Now, ideally, for the Ferrari, he's going to break clear of the slipstream and then start to chip away. I think, pace-wise, definitely stronger. That slipstream, though, is hooking in the rest of the top 5 to keep him in contention, as Roche as well, looking for a little bit of a move to the inside of Weiss there, and definitely eyeing it up in what is a very tight top 5 pack at 7 minutes into still a hour and 53 minutes we've got left.
Watch this run, though, over the top of the mountain from Ribeiro. He is going to go full push, full send to try and break the gap. It sits at 0.4 of a second. Can Bo Dixon go with him? Unbelievably close to the barrier as we enter Sullivan Park at the drop and then climb back up towards McPhillamy through the left-hander. Big slide, very confident with the rear end of this Ferrari is Tomas Ribeiro. Half a second between the top 2 as they fling their way down the mountain once again. Brilliant racing, brilliant driving from this top 5 to keep this close. You wonder when they're going to find a little bit of a breakaway, when there's going to be a reprieve, because it's not right now for Tomas Ribeiro. Bo Dixon, drive of his life in the opening portion of this race. He's keeping right up with the rear end of that Ferrari 296.
I'm incredibly impressed. Genuinely, Bo Dixon driving very, very well, really taking that challenge to Tomas Ribeiro. Maybe would have asked a little bit more of Lucas Müller to get involved in this battle. Definitely had the opportunity to do so, but I think his objective for this race very different to that of Bo Dixon and Ribeiro. So we'll wait and see to see what the reigning DTM Esports champion can do in the latter half. Maybe doing some of that fuel saving that Ribeiro and Dixon have missed out on in the opening phase. Roche versus Weiss, by the way, they've swapped positions, so we've now got 2 Falcon Sim Racing cars running 3 and 4 as it stands, at least in terms of the livery. Weiss demoted to the back end of the top 5, but still firmly in contention. And towards turn number 1, if Bo Dixon gets a good run out of Hell Corner. Definitely could have a look this lap, but again, the question remains, does he want to? Does he want to just sit in the slipstream, save some fuel, now that he knows Ribeiro is unlikely to be able to break free, unless there's a mistake from the Brit, that he can use that to better himself in terms of the strategy. Definitely seems that Ribeiro is looking in his mirrors, though, with a little bit of a weave left and right on the straight to break the slipstream. Ribeiro definitely knows that the threat of Bo Dixon not too far away.
Nor is Lucas Muller. 3 cars separated by a second back then to Roche and Weiss, who don't quite have the speed after they've switched around between Roche and Weiss. Seems to keep up with this group. They have dropped off, and as we saw in qualifying, where it really was the top 3 versus the rest of the field, it does seem as though the race might go that way as well. Just 1 second between this talented group. Behind that, you've got Roche, you've got Weiss, you've got Thomas Gontier, who's found his way into 6th position, about a second clear of Blanchard, who showed very well in that qualifying session. Ferdinand Coughlin in 8th position, Matej Mikiewicz and Florian Spiegel will round out the top 10. Samardzic has gone back to 11th after we saw that incident between Samardzic and Mikiewicz, so he's going to be sitting there in 11th spot, probably feeling pretty outraged by it, and maybe pretty desperate to find his way up towards the back of Matej Mikiewicz and his way through with relatively quick efficiency.
I would say so. Does pay to be quite efficient in a race, funnily enough, I would say. Samardzic, though, I'm sure probably is going to be feeling a little bit frustrated about that move. Jack Barton, though, all aboard the Barton Express, it seems. A huge gap in front to Duxenberg, but a huge train of cars queuing up behind the second Ferrari in this field. At the moment running 15th and under a lot of pressure from Ribbon Alex. Of course, that Ferrari 296 battling for 15th as it's a World Championship title, it seems. Queuing up behind that, the likes of Christian Orban, Tabo, you've got Taru, Marchena, Gaspar Misch as well, not missing out on any opportunities over the course of this race, I'm sure, and would like to find his way up into the top 20.
Honestly, I'd actually missed him. I didn't even realise he was actually in this race. Gaspar Misch. We do love a little bit of Gaspar Misch, and he is a pretty potent competitor himself in the Ferrari, white and blue Ferrari, a few rows back here. It is a tight fight, though, with Ribbon Alex trying to get past Jack Barton, and I say it's not really separate by too much. In fact, this train really does go back to Frings. Rorick not quite there, but he's within a second, I'll allow it. It's Johnson who's 2 seconds off of this. We saw Johnson a little bit at the final runner, or one of the final runners in qualifying, a little bit off the rear of this, but I wouldn't necessarily say he's completely out of this fight. Somewhere where there is a bit of a bigger gap appearing, Race League got up to 3/4 of a second there. I even saw it jump up to about 9/10. Ribeiro is turning the screw, and the gap is growing.
Indeed so, back over a second, so it's flirting on that edge, and of course Bo Dixon will be desperate to stay in that slipstream because, well, if Thomas Ribeiro gets out of it, his consistency and I think his pace will allow him to get clear, riding on board actually with Ribbon Alex down the mountain, looking at Jack Barton in front, and again, always, I guess, a thought in the back of your mind going, what if he spins now? What am I going to do? What is my course of action? I guess you don't always have 100% trust in the car in front, especially that Ferrari looks very on edge going down the mountain, but just keep an eye, of course, on that gap at the front. 0.8 of a second, Bo Dixon needs to be pushing, otherwise the likes of Lucas Muller will reel him back in. That being said, the gap between first and second and third, pretty large. Let's see what the gap is going to be between 15th and 16th, though, because it is closing. And Ribbon Alex, a little bit of a tap to the rear end of that Ferrari there. Definitely could have been more aggressive if he wanted to be, but maybe just misjudged the momentum that he's got. For now, Jack Barton will keep that 15th ahead of the train of cars all queuing behind him. At the moment, it's the triplet of BMWs that want to find a way through. Yeah, and just remember that as much as we're seeing this fighting here and how good it is very entertaining to see these battles up and down this order. Thibaut, I think, has had a bit of a problem through the final corner of Liquid Moly. BMW M4 now goes side by side with Norms. We'll probably fend off Norms at the opening corner at Hell Corner and will indeed keep him at bay as the Manthey Porsche looms large in the background. Distinctive lime green. I'm sure Ewan O'Leary's keeping a close eye on that one. There are other splits. There is 23 other races, well, 22 other races, 23 splits in total, 22 other races, 22 other versions of this race that we aren't seeing. That is just the nature of sim racing. We're obviously seeing the top split. We're seeing the best in sim racing go at it.
but obviously hats off to all the drivers that are taking to Bathurst this evening. About 400 to 450 drivers are currently involved in racing. Great to see the community growing. We've obviously commentated on this on and off quite a lot over the last 2 or 3 years, and the community has grown and grown and grown. So obviously, if you're watching this thinking, I want to take part in this race, do remember in future there's other special events that happen on RaceRoom all the time. Jump on a Steam, download it, get yourself involved, and we'll maybe see you out on track in the next special event.
Definitely want to get back on RaceRoom a little bit. It's been a while. It's been a good few years since I've raced on RaceRoom. The last time was the Rocket Race Star Formula 4 Esports Competition UK back in the day. Bit of a throwback. You were commentating on that, actually. Still to this day, my best move in sim racing around the outside of Thea Mercurius through Maggots and Beckett's and Chapel to get a podium. And I have definitely missed RaceRoom. Of course, a very good sim in terms of the content and the variety of content that you get, and very largely inexpensive, free to install, and all the subsequent packs. You know, very cost effective to get yourself on circuit, and of course these fantastic ranked events, and a great community to go with it as well. It's really nice to see the growth of RaceRoom and the turnout that we've had for the special events so far in 2026. So yeah, really good to see, and well, also as well the excitement out on circuit that we're getting. Thomas Ribeiro, though, that gap has grown quite comfortably now to 1.2 seconds back to Bo Dixon, so that top three fizzled out a little bit. This midfield and back end battle, though, most definitely has not.
Yeah, it's Tarrant that's trying to keep them at bay in 20th position in that Porsche. Fan right on to the rear end, and I say is keeping things very close company. Samardzic getting back to the inside, trying to get himself into the top 10. Muscling Van den Broek into the barrier as the Porsche was trying to make the move. Samardzic does get through into 11th position. Sorry, I said it was going to be the top 10. It was up into 11th position. Van den Broek is sent into the barrier slightly. I'm sure that's not going to be a particularly comfortable feeling for the BMW M4. Dautzenberg as well in the bright pink, distinctly bright pink Porsche of Roxy that just taps the barrier. AO Racing's car. Do love a little bit of that.
I do like the liveries, I have to say, especially the more iconic ones. But I mean, yeah, good to see them being fielded, and a good move there from Samardzic. I say good move. It was a little bit scruffy around the edges. I think he's come into the mindset of, well, if it's going to be done to me, I'm going to dish it out as well. Maybe a bit of a vendetta against some of these BMWs.
I mean, yes, that's all well and good, but it's one of those ones where the more you dish it out, the more likely you are to have it dished to you as well, and that is raising to the conflict. You know, you have that bit of drama, and it is very easy to think, well, I've been pushed off the road, so I'm going to push everyone else off. Generally speaking, not the best thing to go and do. I'll be completely clear. Is Jonas Riedel is alongside fellow BMW Thibaut, and we'll back out of it a little bit, and we'll have to settle for third. Gap for the race lead, importantly, 1.5 seconds now. That gap has grown to.
Yeah, it's falling very nicely into the lap of Ribeiro. Don't get me wrong, 1.4 seconds, by no means a gap to feel comfortable around Bathurst. You know, that's one small mistake, that's washing out wide on one occasion. Anything like that, and Bo Dixon can very quickly be knocking back on the door of Thomas Ribeiro, and we're yet to see as well the pit stop and the strategy. Does the Porsche have the advantage in terms of fuel load around here? Again, that is all to be discovered. But what it does mean is Ribeiro is less focused on what is going on behind him and being under pressure and having to brake, slipstream and defend, and more focused on looking out of his front windscreen and just driving that Ferrari 296 as quickly as possible. Bo Dixon, though, got a nice bit of a reference point. He's been able to use Thomas Ribeiro to pull away from Lucas Müller and grow that gap up to 1.1 seconds. Müller away from Roche as well. That's grown a little bit. So a once five-way fight for the lead definitely has dispersed. Gaspar Misch, well, has worked his way nicely inside the top 20, knocking on the door of Marchena for 18th position as well. That very orange and black Mercedes just in front of him. Of course, the, I want to say Slovenian of Gaspar Misch wants to find a way through and up another position. He's been slowly chipping his way through this field.
I think it is Slovenian. I never remember the nuances though between the Slovenian and Slovakian flags, but I think the Slovakian flag has a red shield and Slovenia has a blue one. Definitely that territory in that neck of the woods. And we do have a lot of very fast Slovenian sim races. Obviously, some of the fastest. Oh, Gaspar Misch just getting dive down the inside by Tarrant. Decides, actually, do you know what? This Ferrari 296 is pretty tanky. And says, you're going to dive me down there, don't worry about it. I can deal with it, no problem. Yeah, the likes of Jane Simincic, Alan Terzic, I mean, there's plenty of others. Quite a lot of fast Slovenian sim racers, and technically Kevin Siggy, although you could classify him sort of as Austrian, but not really. That's fine. Leaving 3 wide of the chase as Gaspar Misch is able to keep Tarrant at bay, and Tebo is going to join in on the fight once more.
It's been a pretty enthralling battle. As a look to the inside as well from Tebo. Thinks about the move into the final corner, but opts out of that one and prioritising a slightly better exit on that run towards turn number 1. Of course, what this has allowed is the Mercedes of Marchena to get away from this closing pack, and Gaspar Misch is probably relishing the opportunity to gain a position rather than being under pressure of potentially losing one. Just coming into 20 minutes into this race now as well, and we've now started to see it settle down. We were on the edge of our seat and very much enjoying the opening carnage and chaos that definitely is encouraged around Bathurst. And well, now everyone's sort of getting on with their own thing. The gap at the front growing to 1.8 seconds. Well, I say it's settled down a little bit. We've still got the packs towards the back end of the field, but definitely towards in amongst the top 10, things starting to space out a little bit. Everyone just getting on with what they need to do. Behind that, though, still keeping it very entertaining. I'll be intrigued to see as to when/if it begins to settle down, but definitely far enough into the race now to start to piece together as to who's where. And well, no surprise, unsurprising to I'd say absolutely no one, that Ribeiro, Dixon and Muller are our top 3.
Yeah, they certainly were the standout in qualifying, and they are being the standout in this race as well. The question marks will then fall as to what strategy games people are playing and how much fuel is being saved. This is one circuit on planet Earth that I think you can actually save a pretty solid amount of fuel on, with respectfully relative ease around here. Now, yes, of course, you have Conrad Straight and Mountain Straight, but over the top of the mountain, you can be a little bit calmer with the right foot, especially on that run down the hill. To the point where I was always told by the top esports drivers, you can basically use very little throttle until you get out of the dipper, especially through the S's. You're not really going anywhere near the throttle. If you're efficient with how you're braking, you can basically come down a lot of the mountain with no throttle usage at all. Tarrant has made a little bit of a mistake whilst trying to get past the Ferrari of Gaspar Misch, going through the chase right there, and has lost a couple of positions. Tebo's come through into 19th position. Gaspar Misch remains in 20th despite losing a position, but that's just sometimes how it goes. Rydell and Tarrant are now all in this fight.
Yeah, a clumsy one there from Tarut. I think just asking a bit too much on the brakes and very quickly ran out of the agility to go around the outside. Misch, of course, keeping that P20. And will now be trying to press on to get after Tebo, but it just seems that Misch running out of momentum really in this train. He was able to quietly work his way through because of the battling of other people, as that continues behind Rydell versus Tarut. The Porsche this time not missing his braking point on the exit, on the entry, and not running wide as a consequence on the exit. So he works his way back up in his P21. Norms as well in that Ferrari looks to the inside of the cutting. Very precarious game being played. Rydell missing out on that occasion, and that's going to bunch up the entirety of the back end of the field. I do like how we've had no one largely knocked out of contention just yet. There's no one straggling half a minute off the back of the pack. Everyone has been kept nice and tight, and pretty much everyone in this field has someone to chase or someone to race against, which I think is again speaks volumes as to the level of competition at the top end of RaceRoom Esports.
Yeah, you want to keep it as close as possible with all of our drivers, and make sure that everyone's having a good time out there. As long as at the back of the field you're involved in a fight, that's kind of what you want. That early drama of being spun round or something like that can really put a dent in your evening. No one was really spun round on lap 1. Yes, there was the odd bits of contact, but realistically it was pretty fine on that opening lap, and has been pretty fine throughout the running of this race. The closer we got a bit of contact between Datsenberg and Matej Mikiewicz towards the front, we saw some great side-by-side between Tomas Ribeiro and Bo Dixon, of which I hope we've not seen the last of during this race. And 2 seconds remains between the two of them, and still 96 minutes on the timesheet. There's chance for them to rejoin and fight.
100%. And again, we're waiting for that strategical aspect to come in. Whether the Porsche maybe has a slightly shorter stop, that could allow Dixon to, get that track position back, and then into the second half of the race, I'm sure he's going to be. I mean, he was aggressive in the early phase. I'm, trying to think what he's going to be like into the second half, where the stakes really start to ramp up. But I think Dixon's aim right now is to save as much fuel as possible, shorten your pit stop when it comes to that point, and then try your best to get that track position. Just keep Ribeiro in your sights and capitalize on any sort of mistakes. I think that's maybe the aim of all three of the Porsches inside the top 5. We'll again have to wait and see. Maybe Ribeiro is fuel saving ridiculously well down the mountain and able to offset some of the losses of the fuel tank of the Ferrari. Will again, all remains to be seen. I've not done any testing. Oh my goodness me, that's how to get it completely wrong there. Blanchard off the exit through the S's gets it all sorts of wrong, and well, very well avoided as well, it must be said, from, I think that was Datsenberg that was just behind him. And now comes the 3-point turn while you've got other cars coming at you, and the dreadful wait to rejoin the race.
And in real life, a few moments ago would have been the perfect time to have called a safety car. We don't have any safety cars in sim racing though, or at least not here in RaceRoom, so we have to just be patient. Thankfully they do have a relative to tell them where all the other drivers are, and to be a little bit patient to get going again. That was a big shame though. Was showing some really, really good speed was Blanchard, but now will be the 27th and final runner of the field in that the more yellow Manthey Porsche. That is a shame. That is a shame. Easily done though, isn't it? Coming out of the dipper where there's kind of walls left and right. Tap either of those, you're already a little bit out of balance on weight and a little bit too heavy on that loud pedal, and suddenly the car goes round. Gaspar Misch keeping Stefan Tarrant at bay for now.
Doing his best and, well, defending very aggressively again. And that's the thing, is I've been interested as to how aggressive people have been. It's a 2-hour race and definitely an attritional one at that. And yet we've seen some very aggressive driving in the opening, not even half an hour of this race thus far. Gaspar Misch, no exception. He doesn't need permission from anyone to be aggressive. Stefan Tarrant to the inside of turn number 2, finds the space later on the brakes, but the momentum swings the way of Gaspar Misch, who just is able to keep it on the road and get the traction he needs to stay in front by the time they get to the cutting. Riddell as well, trying to find the gap into the cutting, but can't slice his way through on that occasion.
That was, again, another great defence from Gaspar Misch, just to keep Tarrant at bay. Going through turn 2 at Griffin's Bend was just about able to do it, and to be fair, they were both millimetres away from each other and millimetres away from pretty much having their races at least spun round. Someone just disconnected from about 18th or 19th position. I think it was Christian Orban, who it is indeed. Christian Orban has gone missing. Not sure as to what's happened to Orban, but unfortunately Christian Orban is no longer in this race, so he is the first, technically speaking, retirement. Yeah,
exactly. And memory serves me correctly, you can't rejoin the race either from a disconnect, so that's his day done and dusted. Unfortunate for Orban. Again, a remarkable driver, but again, we'll be seeing no more of him in this race. I'm sure he'll be bounced back for the next special event. Nonetheless, Stefan Tarrant finds the space to the inside of the chase. The run towards the chicane, of course, very much on. This time on the outside, he's going to make sure he gets it stopped, and maybe a bit too conservative on that occasion, but Gaspar Misch was firing his way through the chicane nonetheless. Stefan Tarrant opting for a slightly better exit, so they draw alongside each other going into the final corner, and the Porsche this time again going for the switchback. A little bit less keen to go around the outside after the mistake a few laps ago. Side by side here as well. This is Willem Baars versus Ruud van der Broek. The Belgian BMW staying in front and able to duck to the inside to defend from the Audi, heading in towards Griffin's Bend at turn number 2.
Keeping the Mark VDS Audi R8 at bay. I've actually got a Mark VDS cap downstairs. Fun fact. I did pay for it, had it thrown at me whilst I was at the 24 Hours of Spa. Both myself and Cameron Roger have one. I think my one's Sam Lowe's though. I think they're from the bike side of things. As Terry will slip once again down the inside of Gaspar Misch. She's a little bit off the apex, a little bit off the racing line onto the dirty bit as they roll their way through Griffin's Bend. He's got the inside though into the cutting, and the Ferrari 296 might just about be able to keep at bay. The BMW clearly struggling a touch in a straight line. I said BMW because I spotted one. Obviously Porsche is what I meant. But just about able to keep them. The Ferrari does not have great straight line speed on Mountain Straight, does it?
I wonder how much of that is down to the Ferrari and how much of it is down to the slipstream being so much stronger. Because Thomas Ribeiro was very quick in the slipstream with Bo Dixon, so I think that's probably the more deciding factor. Nonetheless, Gaspar Misch is, well, very much heading a train and being remarkably defensive, and that's the proof is in the pudding there. The gap to the lead of 41 seconds for Tebo, 47 for Misch, so a 6-second gap between the two of them. Two Porsches go side by side here. This is Samardzic versus Duitsenberg, and well, there we can see the Porsche, well, one of them around the outside, the pink one going around the outside of the chase, side by side, and rubbing wheels on that slight descent towards the final corner. We can see there Samardzic able to stay in front and retain that top 10. Fought very hard to get back into the top 10, that yellow and blue Porsche there, it must be said. Duitsenberg trying to, put a bit of an end to that one as quickly as it happened. But yeah, I have to say, really impressed from Samardzic just to find that rhythm and that momentum and that motivation more than anything to find his way back into the top 10 after being pummeled to about, I think, as low as 14th at one point. So yeah, good to see that the pace still firmly there as Duitsenberg gets demoted to 11th.
I mean, it's been an impressive comeback, yes. It's been a very aggressive comeback, though, from Samardzic. And even there, getting past Duitsenberg, there was a little bit contact going down into the braking zone of the final corner at Murray's. And what that says to me is that Samardzic has had enough of everyone in the opening 30 minutes of this race. To be fair, probably more likely in the opening 10 when he got pummeled off the road, as you quite rightly point out, from Mate Mikiewicz. And clearly feeling that frustration, because he's, to be fair, was higher up the order than where he currently is. So it's dropped back down again after contact with... so he had the contact with Mate Mikiewicz, dropped him a few positions. I think he got back up to being only a couple of positions behind Mate Mikiewicz, but now dropped back down and now has gained another spot back. I might be wrong on that one, but I'm pretty sure that is the case. Now sits about 7 seconds off the Hungarian, who will so desperately try and close down on. This is Alex trying to get past Bars. Vandenbroek has built the gap to the Mark VDS Audi R8, and now it is Bars who has to look in the mirror, and we'll see Alex closing in that slipstream.
See what the BMW can do. Of course, the slipstream has proven to be very strong, especially the long Conrad straight towards the chase. Bars, thankfully, for the Audi, getting the helping of the slipstream from Van der Broek. That's something that's gone wrong for Norms, and I'll tell you for free, that is not the normal line that you want to be taking off the exit of that one. And, well, tumbles his way down to P26. Speaking of as well, tumbling down the order, Gaspar Misch has dropped way outside the top 20 down to P24 for the Slovenian. So I think now the attrition starting to set in and the Mountain taking a couple of victims.
Yeah, it certainly does bite. 2 seconds for the race lead remains, by the way. Just keep an eye on that gap. It's kind of grown a little bit and it's remained relatively stationary around the 2 second mark. Tomas Ribeiro to Bo Dixon. Remember one thing as well, over the 2 hours of this race, that we are going to get a pit stop, that tyre wear is a factor to think of, and tyre wear will be different car to car. Some drivers and cars will burn their tyres, will burn their fuel a little bit differently to others. That's what Balance of Performance tries to negotiate and navigate. But for Bo Dixon and his Porsche, he's just trying to remain as close to the back of the Ferrari 296 that leads the pack as he can, and hopefully for him the tyre wear's all right.
He's going to be hoping that, isn't he? I don't know whether or not they'll be taking tyres. I think that's probably quite punishing. Just trying to think back to Daytona and Macau, whether or not people did. I think maybe some people tried not to and suffered towards the end of the race, or some people did take them and couldn't quite get the advantage they needed to make the gains back. It was one extreme or the other. I can't remember which way round it was, so we'll have the question answered here. Thomas Ribeiro is able to get that gap nearly up to 3 seconds. His ruthless consistency just absolutely hounding in the laps since getting the lead back, and for a moment very much challenged by the likes of Bo Dixon and under a little bit of pressure from Lucas Muller as well. But yeah, since the beginning of the race, even through qualifying, and his previous results speak for themselves in terms of him coming into this as the favourite, I still wouldn't count out Bo Dixon by any means. 3 seconds is not comfortable, and still that strategical element to work into a factor. The differing cars between the Ferrari and the Porsche, like we were alluding to, in terms of tyre wear, fuel wear. We'll have to wait and see what that can bring, as particularly in these battles further down, as to what it's going to shake up and whether it's going to bring the field in even tighter together or split it even further apart. Over half an hour through, so definitely into the closing stage of this stint, as Smartic has lost the top 10, worked very hard to get his way back into it. Datsenberg fires one back up the inside, and well, the pair of them initially, I would say, probably could have gone and caught Spiegel for another position in the top 10, but well, deciding to battling in and amongst themselves for now. Datsenberg, though, well, probably back into the targets, I'd imagine, of Smartic, who is, like we've been saying, probably driving quite frustrated since the beginning of this race.
Yeah, I think they switched, so obviously we saw them switch round. I think they switched back around pretty much the lap after on the run-up mounted straight, and Datsenberg was able to get back through. I would suspect that this battle is far from done as the Porsche duo once again heads towards Solomon Park before rising back up to McPhillamy and preparing for that run into Skyline before the circuit drops away from you. And from driver's eye at this point here, it's called Skyline for a reason. It is the only thing you can see is the sky, and then suddenly the circuit drops away. I could not imagine what that must feel like in a car. I have memories of my dad, this might be a little bit unrelatable to you, throwing it over humpback bridges when I was a kid, and I get the feeling that going over the top of Skyline, probably in that kind of vein, your stomach being thrown up in your body, and that sort of sick feeling as you drop down and suddenly gravity takes back over again.
Yes, oh, that's coming straight over it. That's an example of getting it wrong. Whoa. That's Johnson, and that's a Porsche parked on the apex. Goodness me. Have everyone, I think they've all been able to work their way through quite nicely. Was that Tarut that was parked on the inside?
Yeah, it was Tarut who was backwards going through the dipper, is able to flick the car back round and send it once more. But yes, indeed, there's clearly been a few bouts of drama on the run down the hill for not only Tarut, but for a couple of others, for Blanchard, for Norms. Johnson, who's been sat at the rear of the field for quite a long time during this race, pretty much the opening half an hour, now finds himself a few positions clear of the bottom of our leaderboard on the left-hand side, with their car being cars over a minute off the race lead, and as not even being halfway through the race, we are definitely getting lapped traffic during this race. Tomas Ribeiro will have to navigate a couple of back markers, I'm sure, before we see the checkered flag.
Yeah, in contrast to the lapping that we saw at Daytona, obviously everyone is in the same class, which makes it just that little bit more difficult for Ribeiro to negotiate his way through, because it's not like it's a prototype versus a GT where you can just put your foot down on the straight and blast your way through. I wonder how nice people are going to be to the race leader, how much space they're going to be able to give him, and how consequential it's going to be in the narrative of this race. We'll have to wait and see. Blanchard's front end of that Porsche not looking overly straight. Definitely has taken a bang or two. Probably, I'd imagine, to the rear end of another car, or even maybe a slight tap to the wall. Probably either of them just as likely. This is Marchena versus Thébault. Of course, Marchena was able to be a little bit in the clear because Gaspar Misch was backing everyone up behind him, able to get that orange Mercedes as far clear of the rest of the pack as possible. But a great drive so far from the Frenchman, who I believe has his partner in the YouTube chat cheering him along as well, which is always good to see that community support, and of course the familial support, giving you always your best cheerleaders. And right now probably very happy, and probably, I'd imagine, quite nervous to see Thébault knocking on the door of the Spaniard to work up another position, because at least for the foreseeable future it's probably the only position that he's going to be able to go and get Jack Barton 10 seconds clear of this battle. Yeah,
Thébault Pilet trying to find that one right into the slipstream, into the rear end of the Mercedes, and might be able to pull out and find that move once again onto the brakes as they go into the chase. A little bit later on the brakes from the flying Frenchman. I mean, let's be honest, Erica's not going to be supporting any of your races anytime soon. You didn't even support her play rugby.
I'm going tomorrow, thank you very much.
Finally.
Yeah, I know, it took me a while. I can't help it if I'm away, can I?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Is Blanchard, who had started this race from a solid position. You can see there the position changes through this race. No swaps in the top three, despite Bo Dixon taking the lead in the opening portion of the race. The biggest loser in the race, unfortunately, is this Porsche here. And with the damage on the front end, I'm not particularly sure there's going to be much more to be gained. Unfortunately, that is a large bit of damage on the front end, and it's going to feel very uncomfortable up and over the mountain, where you have to have full confidence in the car. Well, if it's going to start understeering, guess what that's going to do? It's going to push you towards more barriers. It's going to push you towards more contact, push you towards more damage. And that is, well, let's be honest, that's not a good thing.
No, funnily enough, that is the aim, is to try and keep it out of the walls. But you're right, probably a circuit like Bathurst, one of the worst ones to have damage at, because everything, like you say, just gets exaggerated. Understeer here just puts you even more on edge, and you know, if you've got rear end damage, that's even worse, because you're then even more on edge in terms of feeling uncomfortable. And oversteer and twitchiness, probably one of the worst feelings you could possibly have around Bathurst. Confidence in the car, absolutely key, and anything to disturb that, probably not great. I'd say maybe front end damage, you could maybe take a slight little look of a positivity from it, if you're, you know, more on the glass half full kind of side of life, and say, oh, maybe because of the understeer I'm naturally more inclined to take it easier and thus less likely to make a mistake, or I don't know, probably reaching at straws there, but always trying to look at the positive side of things and minimize subsequent mistakes.
Nah, optimism's the root to disappointment, mate. If you're pessimistic about it,
such a good way of putting it.
If you're pessimistic and you think, well, this car's terrible and I'm going to crash into a barrier, and then you do end up crashing into the barrier, at least you can sit there and be like, well, I was right. Whereas if you're optimistic and then you hit the barrier, well, I mean, yeah, you didn't think that was going to happen, so it's lose-lose. You didn't think it was going to happen, so you're wrong, and also you've crashed into the barrier. The double whammy. Be pessimistic when it comes to your sim racing approach. Unless you've got the ego to back it up. I distinctly remember Kevin Siggy. It was a Formula E, one of the race at home races, and it was at Monaco, and he got interviewed before the race started, qualified at pole position before the race start. He got interviewed, and they were like, I think it might have even been Nicky Shields who was interviewing him, and they asked, what do you think is going to happen in the race? What are you expecting at turn one? Are you expecting any difficulty? And he went, no, I'm not expecting any difficulty. I think I'm going to lead into turn one, and I think I'm going to win the race. He then led into turn one and ran away from everyone. It is probably the most proud of someone's ego I've ever been, because I was like, I just respect the bravery of it. It's like, yeah. He didn't care. It's
either generational aura loss, or you back it up. And Kevin Siggy definitely has the speed to back it up. One of the best in sim racing by far, and then probably one of the only drivers ever to injure himself and cut his forehead on a steering wheel and still go on to win 2 championships in the same weekend. He's pretty remarkable. Is Kevin Siggy? But yeah, I mean, if you got the ego to back it up, that's all good. I'm sure you're probably pretty. I was going to say egotistical around Bathurst. I don't doubt that, because I distinctly remember the story that you've not let anyone live down, which is, of course, your cleanliness in 12 hours at Bathurst.
No, you can't tell us the full story. Come on.
I'll let you do it. Go on.
I've told it to you enough. I did a race, it's a 12-hour race. This is the one that I was saying about with Dan Kell earlier on. We did the entire 12-hour race. We got 0 incident points over the entire race. We were one of only 2 teams from 2,750 teams, or whatever, 2,750 drivers, whatever it was. We were one of only 2 teams to have done it. And it was us, me and Dan Kell, on the same list as Enzo Benito and Max Verstappen. Don't worry about it.
Who are they?
Just cool cats, me and Dan. Don't worry about it. Norms will battle it out with Edward Johnson, and will just about be able to flick around the outside going through the chase and up into 24th position. Confirmation on the left-hand side of your screen, Christian Orban, the sole retirer from this race. A disconnection from him about 10 to 15 minutes ago. Big shame for the Hungarian driver, leading the sole Hungarian on the field, being Matej Mikiewicz in 8th position. Yeah,
I have to say, it's going to sound really mean. I expected a bit more from Mikiewicz, to be honest. I know I'd probably imagine front engine car not the most favourable potentially around Bathurst, which I guess it would kind of given it would take. The front engine definitely help you through the S's and such, but probably hinder you down the mountain, taking all of the weight off the rear axle. But I kind of expected him to move forward a little bit, off the back of a very strong drive in Daytona, and being the driver that he is. Maybe you'd kind of be looking at that and saying, top 5 is absolutely on. Maybe he's got a strategical mastermind plan that's in action going into the pit stops, which should probably be happening anywhere between sort of 12 and 16 minutes time from now. Of course, as we approach closer and closer to that 1 hour mark, I'd say most people are going to try and split it as evenly in half as they possibly can. And the key with Bathurst as well, there's a lot to gain, both pit lane in and pit lane out. Of course, that slight chicane beforehand, and trying to manage the pit lane exit on cold tyres as well. Definitely some temps to be had there, and in battles that have pretty much been raging on as close as they have been throughout the field, those attempts are definitely going to add up if you're not committed enough going in and out of pit lane.
Yeah, but, I mean, it is a pit lane that bites. 2 reasons as to why. Number one, obviously, like you say, the chicane beforehand means you actually slow down and then accelerate again and then have to slow down again, right, on the way into pit lanes. That's pretty tough. And the second part is that the pit lane speed limit is really low here. I think it's 60, if I remember correctly. Around here, it's very, very low. It is quite hard to get the car down to that speed in that time, because it's quite an unnatural speed. If you ask a lot of these drivers to slow down to 80 kilometers an hour, they can probably do it without even really thinking about the speed they're doing. Like, you know roughly what 80 kilometers an hour looks like. It's very typical for a pit lane to be that kind of speed. 60, sometimes when it's 50, I mean, that's tough. That is tough to find that. So I would expect at least one of the 26 runners on this field will probably breach the pit lane speed limit. So we'll have to wait and see what that's going to look like, obviously, when they venture their way into pit lane in about 15 minutes' time.
Indeed, so we'll have to wait and see. We did have a couple of those at Daytona. I think Daytona probably the staple example of pit lane speeding, and people definitely biting the wrong end of that stick, and definitely right at Bathurst. I would absolutely say it's more awkward when you have to accelerate and stop again, because you're trying to maximise the corner. At least with Daytona, if you get a solid braking reference, you're fine. But obviously, the speed you take through the chicane is going to differ. The reference not always going to work, that sort of thing. Yeah, Bathurst, very, very tricky. Not a circuit I've driven too much of, actually, in sim racing. I didn't do the 12 hours this year, and obviously I'm not on the grid for the 2 hours this year, 2 hours in RaceRoom, so not driven it a lot, but can definitely say from experience that I've made a couple of errors over the pretty high curb through the chicane, actually, to be fair. Yeah, no, it is. It is a tricky pit entry. Thankfully, unlike some other circuits, which I can name, it's not an unsafe one. Obviously, you say about Daytona. I think Daytona is one of the most underratedly difficult pit entries, because it is so wide and so open that there is so little reference as to when to actually start braking. It's so easy to speed in pit lane. Here, you at least have so much reference, almost too much reference, as to how to get in and out of pit lane. What do you think? What's the worst pit exit on planet Earth? I have an answer. You have an answer. I already know what it is. But if you can think objective truth here, or is this just the Lewis McGlade objective truth of a little bit of the second one, but it is objective truth. It is the worst pit. So as soon as I say it, you'll be like, oh yeah. I'm trying to think. I don't know. I'll give you a couple of minutes to think about it. Yeah, give me an opportunity. I'm just thinking, recently, Sebring is not ideal in terms of where you rejoin on the circuit, but I wouldn't say it by any means difficult. Sebring's pretty bad. I don't necessarily mean difficult. I mean, from a design standpoint, pretty dumb. Obviously, you are welcome to join in on the discussion in the YouTube chat. There's a few to throw out there. I mean, pit entrances, I'll throw a couple out there, like Austria. I think it's one of the worst pit entrances. You're slowing down on the apex of a fast corner. Unbelievably stupid. At least here, you're on the straight, you move over to the left-hand side, you go into the pit lane. You come out of the pit lane, you're off the racing line, and then you move back onto the racing line. It's perfect. Yeah, in terms of design, it's good. I'm thinking Donington Park for exits, not great. Pretty bad, yeah. Because you kind of need to open up Redgate with the pit lane of turn number 1. Yeah, I'd say Donington Park not great, but easily avoidable. You just don't use the pit lane to open up turn number 1. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think. You know what I'm like with circuits as it is anyway. I'll tell you something. You are in the right country. You are in the right country for it. It is in our homeland. It's in the United Kingdom of Great Britain. Okay, Silverstone is fine. Yeah, no, sorry. It'll click in a second, as we'll see the battle a little bit further down the order. Frings and Rydell going side by side, Porsche versus BMW, and it will be the Manthey Porsche just about keeping at bay. Frings 19th position, Rydell in 20th. Have you got an answer? Knock Hill is pretty appalling. Well,
I'm going to interrupt you because someone has got the right answer. Time Luster in the YouTube chat, Brands Hatch. Worst pit exit on planet Earth. You are dropped out onto the apex of a blind right-hander over the crest of a hill. Is there anything more dumb? It's unacceptably poor.
Yeah. What would your solution be? Just run the pit lane exit down Paddock Hill Bend. Nonetheless, Mish trying to go around the outside of Blanchard. Meanwhile, that's going to be very quickly held off by the Porsche. So your solution would just be run the pit lane exit to the inside of going up Druids?
Anything other than what we have. The apex of a really difficult corner is never a good idea. And the reason why it's relatively fine is that most of the series that race there don't require pit stops. Then GT World Challenge goes there and British GT goes there. Ow, that was a bit of a hit to the barrier. Yes, I'm sure a lot of club racing, like GT Cup and stuff, does require pit stops, but most of the racing that happens around there doesn't require a visit into pit lane, which is why, generally speaking, it's fine. But it is awful. And I understand that space is a bit of a problem. Obviously, you've got the relief, the pit entry bit, the road, the service road that runs underneath. But yeah, anyway, we're on quite a tangent on that one as we're sat right under the rear wing of Gaspar Mish's Ferrari. We were on board with Fan for that one. And Thibaut Pellet will just about get around the outside of Marchena and up to 16th position. It's a feisty return drive from the Frenchman.
Yeah, really impressive stuff. It took him a while to get through on Marchena. A nice bit of a battle between them, and it's by far not over. The Mercedes stuck in the slipstream. Bit late on the brakes there. Able to get it stopped just about without running into the back end of the BMW. And now comes the slipstream. Probably actually worked in the Mercedes' favour to open up a bit of a gap to use some of that slipstream towards Griffin's Bend. Of course, Thibaut Pellet has to go defensive. Naturally taking it all the way to the white line. The Mercedes with the run will look to the left in what could well be a swap for 16th position. The Mercedes tries to go the long way around, but that quickly gets thwarted by Thibaut Pellet, who stays in front. Rob Fan, of course, not going to be a fan of his current position on circuit, but would like to do a little bit better than that and find a way through on Gaspar Mish, who once again is proving to be a roaming chicane in this race in terms of his defensive abilities.
He's doing what he can. That's the important bit. I mean, look, we've got some great race. Oh, Marchena very close to the barrier and close again. I think that was definitely a grind of the barrier going through Solomon Park. From the Mercedes, that bright orange and grey Mercedes that sits in 17th position, the lone Merc at this point of the race, and just grinding the barriers a touch over the top. You can get away with a little bit of a kiss, but more than that, Marchena's been asking a lot of this car and this circuit.
Yeah, you can't get too greedy by any means. You kind of do just have to hope if you do hit it, you hit it at a pretty forgiving angle. But yeah, for the most part, if you tap it, you're tapping it at such an angle because so many of the corners are quite, flicks in, and you're obviously trying to get as close to the wall as you can, largely because of the undulation and the camber, particularly through the dipper. You're just aiming as close as you can get to the wall, so much so that if you hit it, you turn in a bit too early, that's your front left suspension, and very quickly you're going to have a bent steering wheel, and you're going to be right hand down for the majority of the straights for the rest of the race. So yeah, largely unforgiving is Bathurst, and you can get away with a little bit. If you scrape your door, you might be okay. You're going to have a bit of a bruise to your ego, but you'll be all right. Side by side here, Willem Baars, of course, in the Audi, getting overtaken by Van der Broek. These two, of course, have been having a pretty decent battle over the last few minutes, and we're drawing closer and closer to the pit stop window, if you like. It's not a inbuilt one, but sort of what we're expecting, plus or minus 5 minutes to the hour is kind of where we're going to be looking for people to come into the pit lane. And for someone like Willem Baars, maybe if he's got the pace relative to Van der Broek, would be looking to do an undercut or an overcut to get some clear air relative to the BMW. And so far, for the most part, we've kept it fairly clean. Once we get into the pit stops and after that where things really start to ramp up, I mean, it'll be interesting to see as to how aggressive these drivers get going into the final 60 minutes.
Yeah, my mindset as to whether I'm pitting early or late depends on whether I'm changing tyres. If I'm changing tyres, I actually want to pit slightly earlier so I can make the most of those tyres and try and jump a couple of people. If I'm not taking tyres, I'm staying on these all the way through the race. Not sure if anyone is in that camp. But if that is the case, then realistically speaking, I want to go as late as possible so that I'm on as low fuel as possible for the longest possible time, because that will wear your tyres ever so slightly less. Not sure what the possibility is and what the theory is for a lot of our drivers out there, as Willem Bars is seeing a BMW go left, then right, then left, then right, and struggling to get Van der Broek's car down onto the apex of the chase. Was able to do so though, as Alex is also looming large in the background, about 3 seconds arrears of this fight for 12th position. Again, more struggles coming in the defence potentially, but I think that's more of a struggle for the car in the hands of that BMW. Oh my goodness, squeeze over the nose of that R8. Maybe it looked terrifying from that angle, but that was close.
Yeah, take a breath, Willem Bars, to get yourself through that gap. But to be honest, I've been seeing quite a lot more of that style of driving, which is I'll defend, and then just before the braking zone, if I'm ever so slightly in front, I'm going to dart back to the racing line. Not a fan, to be honest. I know we only saw one sort of angle of that, but purely from a self-preservation perspective, I just wouldn't feel comfortable doing that, purely because I just wouldn't have the faith in the car behind not to run to the back of me, purely from that perspective. And I'd kind of be expecting that to happen anyway, especially if, you know, there's space and it's a corner where going around the outside is possible. You're almost expecting the car behind to go in slightly deeper on the brakes. And Van der Broek, I would say, being fairly aggressive, chopping over the nose of the Audi there, running a little bit wide though as Gaspar Misch. That's going to maybe open the door for Fan Norms and on board with Tarut to get closer on that run in towards turn number 2. But yeah, I have been seeing a little bit less of that self-preservation side of the racecraft recently.
Yeah, I mean, there's been again a couple of closer moments. I thought it was going to be a little bit too late on the brakes from Tarrant, but no, we're okay. We're just getting the concern. Sometimes it looks like they're going to have a crash and they don't, which, to be fair, I'd take. I think that's all right. It's always good to be playing a little bit of a risky game and keeping us on the edge of our seat, and they certainly are trying with that. Pit stops on the horizon. 4 seconds at the head of the field between Tomasz Ribeiro and Bo Dixon. Lukas Müller behind with Roche, Gontier, Weiss, Coughlin, Matej Nikiewicz, who is not that far behind Ferdinand Coughlin, must be said. Lauren Spiegel is keeping Doutsenberg, who once again got ahead of Samardzic and has been able to build that gap out by 3 seconds. Has Doutsenberg. We've seen the fight between Van der Broek and Bars. We've seen Alex closing in on that. Barton, Tebo Pillay, who's been doing a great job to rise back up the order. 16th position, about 2 seconds clear of Marchena, who we saw that switch of position not too long ago. We've got Rorik Frings, Rydell, Blanchard, and then this fight here, Gaspar Misch with Fan, Tarrant, Norms, and to be fair, not too far off the rear of the field is Johnson as well. 64 minutes left to go of this race.
Closing into the first half of completion, and well, so far not been disappointed by any means, as ducking and diving, Tarut finally decides which side of the track he wants to go down the inside, and well, doesn't quite find the gap on that occasion, and well, he's going to hamper his exit ever so slightly. That could allow Norms in the Ferrari to find the rhythm. Looking very reactive in his driving, looking in his rearview mirror and trying to deter the move from Norms as much as he possibly can, running a bit wide and kicking up some dust as they exit Hell Corner on this straight towards turn number 2. Let's see if Norms is going to go for the move or maybe give a slight little bit of a bump to get onto the back of Mission Fan just in front. Again, these guys are battling for P22, 23, 24, but let's not forget that even though they are the back end of it, they are still in top split, and some of the best drivers on the platform side by side through Griffin's Bend, and Tarut able to stay through and ahead through well, that particular battle, but we'll see if he's able to close back into the 2 in front. Again, Gaspar Misch, his defensive driving, he is very well versed in making that Ferrari as wide as possible, and that's proven so. I know Bathurst historically is quite a difficult circuit to overtake at, but Misch has really given everyone a good old run for their money, no matter who it is or what position it's for or what stage of the race it is at. He's got a very good head of awareness on his shoulders.
You could say he's on a mission to keep those cars behind. He's doing a great job. Unfortunately, his eyes have been more on his mirrors than probably out of the windscreen so far today. He's been really keeping his eye on what is happening behind him, and has been doing a great job in doing that. But probably for Fan, for Tarrant, and for Norms, they're all getting a little bit annoyed at seeing this pesky blue and white Ferrari 296 ahead of them, and they'd very much like to see them in their mirrors. Bars has dropped down the order. I wonder if there is a pit lane entry for Willem Bars. As Fan will go for the move now with a little bit of a brush with Gaspar Misch as they head into the chase. Is it going to be two Porsches working their way through? Will Gaspar Misch be able to get back past? No is the answer. He's going to get squeezed just a little bit, and maybe a little bit more contact might see him pass by Tarrant as well.
Well, I was going to say the shack has been unleashed for Fan to get away, but Gaspar Misch is coming into the pit lane anyway, and probably a big old sigh of relief from that train of cars just to be running in some of their own clear air for the time being. Villeneuve, of course, coming into the pit lane. We can see the BMW of Christian Orban, who disconnected quite a while into this, quite a while ago, quite early in this race, and a shame not to see more of the Hungarian. But yeah, now we're getting that pit stop phase come in, and Gaspar Misch taking his way out of the traffic. Like I say, probably going to be very much to the delight of these four who can, well, for the first time in quite a while, actually start pushing and put some decent lap times down on the board.
Yeah, exactly. Villeneuve will leave the pit lane and will be the, well, I was going to say, be the final run of the circuit. Gaspar Misch will be out fairly shortly behind him. Did see Bo Dixon had come through, so a couple of cars going a lap down. Tomas Ribeiro has picked off Villeneuve, but obviously we haven't seen Ribeiro or Dixon onto the lane just yet. I know it says 1:30 at the top. Obviously ignore that. We know it's an hour, 1:30 from this point. We are approaching the halfway point of this race. We're approaching the pit stop sequence. And we are approaching the potential final form of this race. As into the barrier is Frings. Unfortunately, that distinctive green on the Manthey Porsche has been sent into the barrier, potentially with a solo spin.
Yeah, I'd imagine that's the case. Probably braking a bit too hard, and the rear brake bias not working in his favour, I would probably put that down to. And thankfully able to, in the position where if you're going down the mountain, you're just coming into sight as you go down Skyline. So very probably, if you're going to spin anywhere in that particular part of the circuit, you kind of want it to be there in some weird way, purely because it's, in terms of self-preservation, the place where you're least likely to potentially get hit. Good job from everyone coming in to react and find their way cleanly round around Frings, who of course is going to be slightly frustrated with himself, but I'm sure going to be pressing on now into the second half of this race. And with the majority of the field going on for another lap, going quite far into the second hour before they come in for a stop through, looking to the inside. There comes our race leader though, Tomas Ribeiro, pretty much bang on the money, half distance over the chicane. Does he get it stopped as well for the pit lane? And now this could well be pivotal in this race, because I think Bo Dixon has followed him in just in the background as well. So a race between the top two in the pit lane.
Yep, indeed. Has Lukas Müller joined them in the pit lane? I believe so. Yes, he is. There he is, rolling down pit lane. So our top drivers have taken to the pit lane all at the same time. What's it going to look like? Roche also into the pit lane. What's it going to look like on the exit pit lane? What are the gaps going to be? Who's going to be taking what when it comes to fuel? If anyone taking tyres, what not? Thomas Gontier will remain out on the circuit and will assume the race lead with 58 minutes and 30 seconds left to go, with a car which is awaiting its pit stop. Matej Mikiewicz also through. Out of the pit lane comes Ribeiro. And yes, there is a car directly ahead, not for position. That is, I was going to say that's Willem Bars, but no, it will be Johnson who's fresh out of the pit lane. The gap grown by a second or so from Ribeiro to Dixon, so I can assume they've basically done the same thing.
Yeah, a bit surprising there from Bo Dixon, but I suppose maybe not that big of a difference between the Porsche and the Ferrari than we initially expected. Maybe Ribeiro was able to save some fuel over the course of that stint, and fair play to him if that was the case. He was comfortably clear and under very little pressure for the majority of that hour. Lukas Müller, though, quite a long time stationary in the stop. Wonder if he maybe had a bit of damage he had to repair or something in that vein. Nonetheless, Weiss comes out with him. Coughlin, of course, about 3 seconds clear of Lukas Müller. So, yeah, an uncharacteristically slow stop there from Müller. I wonder if he did maybe take tyres, but I didn't see him go up on the jacks. I'm not sure. I
was going to say, the only thing that I can think of there is that maybe Bo Dixon and Tomas Ribeiro didn't take tyres and that Lukas Müller did. We are not well versed on such strategies, so if you are aware as to what any of these drivers have done, drop it in the YouTube chat and let us know. But by my estimation, it would be a difference on strategy for Lukas Müller versus Matej Mikiewicz and Tomas Ribeiro. Gontier and Thomas Rivera and Bo Dixon rather is what I was going to say. But yeah, Gontier and Mikiewicz will surely be into the pit lane this time by, if not very shortly. Let's see if it is going to be an entry into pit lane this time by. Will say, once this pit lane sequence unfolds, realistically, Lucas Müller, if he has taken tyres, he's only lost a single... Yes, he's lost a lot of time. He's only lost a single position to Ferdinand Coughlin, which is not bad at all if that is the case, because as soon as he's through on Ferdinand Coughlin, would have clean air.
Yeah, that's true. But also, if Lucas Müller did take tyres, surely you would have expected him to push a bit harder in that opening stint, knowing that he was going to get a fresh set relative to the likes of Ribeiro and Bo Dixon, who understandably would have had to be taking a little bit of conservation, and yet still Lucas Müller was slower. I mean, I don't know if he will have the pace to go and catch, purely based off what we've seen in terms of pace in the opening stint. I'd like to be proven wrong. I'd like to see Müller, of course, work his way in and contend the top two. But yeah, you're right. If he's able to get onto the back of Coughlin, which with a gap of just under 2 seconds, I'm sure is probably not too in the distant future, then he obviously, like you say, has got that space, and probably a little while before we start doing the big bulk of the lap traffic to really utilise and push in. I would probably back the pace of Ribeiro and Dixon over Müller, unless the tyres really start to drastically drop off over the next sort of 10-15 minutes and throughout the rest of the race to the checker flag. Yeah, well, Müller's got this problem. He's trying to get past Tomasz Gontier, and there's a bit of contact between the two of them. It is Müller on the inside, and Müller through into fifth. So one position ticked off. He also has Coughlin and Matej Mikiewicz to get through. Good scene for Mikiewicz to get up into third position post pit stop. Obviously different strategies that drivers are on. We did have it confirmed from someone in the YouTube chat from 519 that it was no tyre change for Ribeiro, and that'll be the same obviously for Bo Dixon, because they're running the same strategy. Lucas Müller definitely doing something different, which will have been tyres, and so he has to basically lap for the final portion of this race to close in. It's got to be 1.5 to 2 seconds faster basically than the top two if he's able to close his way back in. And I don't think the tyre wear's that bad, but of course that's probably going to show its ugly head within the final 20 minutes. That's when you're going to start to see anyone, if they are struggling on tyres, it'll be then. Yeah, 100%. And then it's really into that conservation mode, because the tyres get worse, it's easier to slip. When you slip more, the tyres wear down more, it's a cycle, and a vicious one at that. So making sure you're being as smooth as possible, and of course mistakes around Bathurst much more punishing. The sort of the consolation to this, if Müller is able to catch up, is side by side. Tim Roche finds a way through the chase, and finally works his way up into what is 8th position now, settling back into the race after the stops, and would like to be pressing on. Of course, if Müller is able to catch up onto the top two, track position incredibly important, as we've established. And the defensive work for, of course, Bo Dixon and of Thomas Ribeiro isn't going to be overly difficult, provided they can keep it on the tarmac. So again, still a lot to unpack over the next 55 minutes. The main job, though, for Müller isn't worrying about how he's going to get past should he get there. It's, I need to put myself in a position to be fighting against them. But he's ridiculously far off the back. I really cannot see a world where Müller wins this race unless there is a dramatic drop-off from the top two. One driver I am surprised about, though, Matej Mikiewicz up there in P3.
Do you know what? If I'm in Lucas Müller's boots, I actually don't hate it, right? And I know you say that maybe he's not going to be able to close up to Tomasz Ribeiro. One of those ones, maybe it's not the point. And if it is possible, great. But was running in third, has taken a bit of a strategy gamble, and I would say on pace, I would say is pretty likely to return up to third position, to get ahead of Matej Mikiewicz once again. He's right on the back of Ferdinand Coughlin, and as much as Matej Mikiewicz has taken this gamble, not taking tyres, whatever he's done, that's found him up in third position in the 33, which is great. I don't hate it from Lucas Müller, because I've always said, if you are in a position and you then take a gamble in the pit stop, the gamble has not worked if you then gain a few spots. I mean, yeah, sure, you would say yes, it has, but it also has worked to a degree. If you keep the same position, if you return to the same position, it only fails if you lose ground on where you were. And I mean that in the sense of, if at the end of the race Lucas Muller crosses the line in 4th spot, then it is a failed strategy, because he's tried something that hasn't netted him the same result that he was in going into the pit lane sequence. So, like I say, sometimes it's not about doing something crazy to steal the victory. It's about trying something that gives you an easy option to the end of the race. Because if he has taken tyres, as we believe he has, his car's going to be a lot easier to drive over the next hour.
And that's the other thing as well, is that he's going to feel a lot more comfortable on these tyres. So in terms of, again, self-preservation, consistency and attrition, he's a lot less likely to put it into the barriers, purely because he's got the grip available to not coast his way to the end, but feel comfortable on the rubber that he's got on. And yeah, I suppose as well, maybe it wasn't a decision he made coming into this race. Maybe it was a late call to go, you know what, I'm going to give it a go in terms of tyres, and maybe that's why he didn't push harder over the opening stint. Again, only of course he'll know, unless he tells us after the race as to what he was saying. But again, it's that thing of, what I'm doing right now isn't working. I'll try something else, and if I keep the same position, like you say, I haven't lost anything. But if I do gain, then happy days. So yeah, probably maybe in hindsight the right decision from Lucas Muller, provided he can get after Mate Mikovic, who, the Hungarian, being in the position that he is in, probably ridiculously good fuel saving over the opening stint to stretch his stint as far into the second hour as possible in order to shorten that stop, has been a big telling in his ascension up into the podium spots. I doubt Muller will have a very easy ride of working his way back into the position he was before the stops.
Yeah, indeed. We will get that tower back on the left-hand side of the screen and let you know what the order is in a few moments' time. One thing we do know is that Tomas Ribeiro is running rampant at the top of the standings. 8 seconds clear of the field, 50 minutes left to go, and it does seem as though Ribeiro and Dixon will probably have a relatively easy cruise to see the checkered flag. For all the other drivers, certainly more things up in the air. Lucas Muller now, keep an eye on that gap. 2 and a bit seconds behind Mate Mikovic. That will be the one that we're going to keep an eye on, at least for the near future. Thomas Gontier with Weiss behind, Ferdinand Coughlin a couple of seconds down the road. Any further gains that he can make after having a very close call with Lucas Muller on the run up to Griffin's Bend. That was pretty tight between the pair of them. Could have ended in the barrier for both.
Yeah, I mean, it was weirdly aggressive. I mean, again, you're on a straight line and you're turning across each other. Obviously, both drivers want to be the one dictating the line into the corner. The driver on the outside wants to squeeze the driver on the inside as far over to the inside as possible in order to minimise their advantage, and vice versa. The driver on the inside wants to be as far over to the outside as possible. So naturally, you are going to have a bit of a ding-dong, but very easy at that speed. And GT3s, they're pretty robust, but in some cases can be quite sensitive, that you bounce off each other and you both go veering off into the walls at speed like that, especially if you catch it at the wrong angle. So yeah, in a race like this, I've been surprised as to the level of aggression that we've seen from some drivers, but in the end, no harm, no foul, and can put it down to just a bit of hard racing.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I think that's sometimes the best way, especially with these kind of events. We see it all the time from these RaceRoom special events. We've been running them for quite a while, both yourself, Zach, and I, and obviously a few others in the forms of Cam, Roger, Darren Thacker, you and O'Leary have all been a part of these special events with Captain Coffee guiding us. Now obviously we've got our broadcast partners in Traxion taking us through these races, and we've been joined by John Monroe and likes. Obviously we've seen a lot of these special events unfold. We've seen a lot of them over the last years. We've seen them grow a lot, whether and it's the community around them. It's not the same as special events on some other platforms that we see, where it's the super elite of esports, almost like it's like their life depends on it sometimes. A lot of the time here, if they're out for a good race, they're trying to trying to win. And these are all very, very competent drivers at this level. In the top few splits, of course, there's still some of the best out here on this platform. but it's one of those ones where they're out there looking for an enjoyable race, and if that means they're going to get their elbows out and have a bit of fun with someone, then that's the case. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And the thing that I think RaceRoom can definitely hold its head up high with is the community, right? It's kind of an underdog in the world of sim racing, and the community that it's got, I think, is really, really loyal. In the sense that, you know, everyone gets on, everyone's willing to share things and do it for the love of the game. As Lucas Miller carves his way through a bit of traffic, you know, everyone's here to just have a good time, and I think that's one of the best things about RaceRoom. You know, the Discord that a lot of people are active in. You know, of course you've got the big names, the Matej Mikovic's, the Riberas, the Mackenberg brothers. You know, they're maybe the people that people look up to in this community, but they're still very down to earth, very much engaged with the wider runnings of RaceRoom. And as much as that is true as well, you know, let's not discredit the opportunities that RaceRoom has given at the top level of esports. Look for, I mentioned earlier, the Rocket Race Formula 4 Esports Competition UK, and, you know, giving Deacon Fairclough that opportunity to go and do the amazing things that he's been doing in the world of motorsport. Obviously, Lucas Miller, a golden example of that through the DTM Esports, taking the GT4 around the Red Bull Ring last year. I mean, both casual and competitive, I think RaceRoom really does do it incredibly well in terms of the opportunities there are for anyone to jump in and give it a go. And yeah, again, it's a difficult sim, I think, to master, but to jump in and give a go, I mean, it's relatively forgiving. So yeah, I think RaceRoom is a really good sim. And again, it costs you nothing to give a go, which always is going to be a bonus. You can just jump in on RaceRoom and try some of the free content, which is always great, as well. These battles have definitely kept us on our toes for the last hour and 15 minutes.
Samardzic through on Doutsenberg up into the top 10, and those two have chopped and changed a couple of times. Doutsenberg got back straight away immediately last time Samardzic got through, so I wonder if that's going to be the case out of Hell Corner. Up Mountain Straight once again. To your point, by the way, on cars and stuff, one of the things that I think RaceRoom does the best, we've said this before with the RaceRoom Super Touring Championship, is some of the classic cars. Everyone loved the DTM 95 pack. The RaceRoom Super Tours are right up my alley, and where I like to find myself in sim racing. There's plenty of other historic cars, Group 5s and whatnot. We love ourselves a little bit of that. Here comes a look to the inside once again from Doutsenberg, but will not pass Samardzic now. Will remain behind. 44 minutes left to go. Back up to Lucas Muller, who has found his way onto the rear end of Matej Mikovic's BMW M4, and Lucas Muller will be hungry to find his Falcon car ahead of Matej Mikovic in the near future.
Yeah, he's going to be looking for the opportunities, looking as to where he's quicker, and also, meanwhile, the net gap to the leaders has remained largely unchanged, if not in favour of Lucas Muller. So I would say it's probably a matter of when he's through as opposed to if, unless something drastically goes wrong. The pace at which Lucas has been able to gain on Mikovic has been pretty staggering, and now in the slipstream we'll be looking to use this momentum and not get stalled behind the Hungarian. Of course, look at the difference in speed with the slipstream. Absolutely launching through is the Falcon Sim Racing Porsche, and up now into third position. Now keep an eager eye on the gap, 36.9 to Thomas Ribeiro, and of course it'll be 28 to Bo Dixon. Let's keep an eye on that and see if it comes down over the subsequent laps, and, well, try and have a look as to whether or not another position other than third is possible for Lucas Miller. I'll be intrigued to see as to how much that gap comes down in the next sort of 15 minutes or so.
Are you going to tell him, though, after the race, if he does end up magically working his way through up into the race lead, that you doubted his strategy? I didn't.
I didn't say I doubted him. I just said it's going to be difficult. I am the #1 Lucas Miller fan. Okay.
Are you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Goodness me, has he not got any family watching?
If he does, they can't compete with me. Let's put it that way. Off the back of Formula Accelerate back in the couple of years ago, he's been a pretty nice guy. Always there for the information in RaceRoom is Lucas Miller, and I did tell him, you know, he better win and not let me down. But he said he's just going to give it a go, and still fighting at the sharp end, still got the pace. So, you know, he's a good guy. Yeah,
I mean, speaking of, you were listing off some of the drivers in the community and stuff. I actually haven't seen him in the YouTube chat today. Colin Blankenberg, if you are watching, hello. Obviously, the two-time Bathurst 2-hour champion here on RaceRoom. That was not a great line from Doutsenberg, who's tapped the barrier on the run in through the middle of the cutting, and that is definitely going to cost him a couple of seconds to Samardzic. So that gap's going to grow to around 2 to 3 seconds, and Roxy's going to struggle to get back up to speed, and I think the speed will be found again in the Porsche, but just a bit of a sketchy moment. I don't think it was anything more than just a brush fire. I think the smoke made it look a lot worse than it was.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, it was just looked to be an innocent spin, maybe a tap to the inside, if nothing else. Side by side here between Weiss and Roche. Of course, the Porsche of Roche and the Audi of Weiss very quickly relinquishing that position to tuck back into the slipstream. It's a long drag race to be alongside each other that early on the straight, so you want to tuck back in, you want to utilise that slipstream, and will we see a counter-attack from the Audi. They've got a bit of space in front and behind, so in their own little pocket of racetrack as it stands, but seems to swing in favour of Roche there just to work their way through and up into 7th position. Now the question remains, can they close the 4 seconds to Thomas Gontier in 6th? Now that is going to be a tough ask, but definitely doable. I say 6 seconds, it's actually close to 4 to Gontier. So firmly on, especially as to how quickly the gap has opened up in just a couple of corners between Roche and Weiss. I think maybe, was Roche similar in Lucas that he took tyres? I think maybe so. So maybe some fresh tyres working in favour of the second Vulcan livery Porsche to work his way back into the top 6, and Coughlin not a million miles in front of the Frenchman either, so the top 5 still on actually for Roche in that Porsche.
Yeah, I mean, I will say for Lucas Muller, Sam, I'm thinking about what's actually possible. Obviously should be running around the circuit quite a bit faster. I mean, the pit stop was longer by about 35 seconds. His stationary time was longer than Tomas Ribeiro. If that's the case, then he's obviously regained a fair amount of that time already. Sits around 36 seconds. I think at this point, by the end of the race, if this pace is held all the way up to the end of the race, I think Lucas Muller will get within maybe 25 seconds of the race lead. That doesn't sound great, but I think that's actually a pretty solid chunk of time to be closed down, and I wouldn't be too surprised if there was no pit stop, if it was going to be around that time as well. That was absolutely terrifying. I think that was Norms who was getting out of the way as we were riding on board with Gontier going down into the dipper. Probably one of the scariest moments. 29 seconds was added for tyres. Thank you for the information. Like I say, if you could drag that down to below 30 seconds, that'll be pretty solid. At the moment, though, for him to win the race, much like it would have been had he not stopped for tyres and just taken fuel in the pit stop, Lucas Muller is hoping for a mistake from Ribeiro and Dixon.
Yeah, exactly. His situation doesn't largely change, regardless of whether he takes tyres or not. Maybe if he doesn't take tyres, he's closer, so it's not as big of a mistake needed to capitalise, but you can't really live like that, and you can only really sort of look at that in hindsight. In all honesty, I think Muller, yeah, the tyres were a good gamble, and we'll have to wait and see. Also, you know, we have to remember, it's been a while since he's been, you know, in a RaceRoom special event. I think it's been a while since he's been on RaceRoom in general. I think he's sort of jumping back in preparation for DTM. That's sort of his aim and his target for today, whereas the likes of Bodix and Ribeiro, of course, have been very frequent and very recent on the platform. Of course, Ribeiro taking the win at Macau at the back end of last year, and I'm sure has been, you know, present on the sim, you know, over the last couple of weeks and such. So I think Muller, all things considered, has had a very respectable drive nonetheless. And again, when you've got the benchmark like Ribeiro and Bo Dixon, you know, you've done well just to jump in and contend with them. So I think the top 3, especially through qualifying, how close they were, all can hold their head up very, very high. I just think, as always, the consistency more than anything from Ribeiro is the thing that has made the difference. It's one of those things, he just doesn't flinch. Even when the pressure was on him in the early phases of this race, minimal mistakes, minimal misjudgments, and since then has just been near faultless for probably about an hour since he retook the lead from Bo Dixon.
But again, this circuit, it bites. Lap traffic, working your way through it, it bites around here. One thing to always remember when it comes to you navigating the lap traffic is that we always say that all you have to do is keep mistakes to a minimum to see the checkered flag from this position. The one thing that we do mention, but maybe not as much, is yes, you have to keep mistakes to a minimum, but it doesn't necessarily have to be your mistake to ruin your race. When you're going through the back markers, a simple mistake from them and the race could be over in a heartbeat, especially over the top end of the mountain. And we saw that bit where Norms was getting out of the way when we were riding on board with Gontier coming down through the dipper. If that happens and you're not paying attention, it's very, very scary. We're looking at Van der Broek there. Damage on the front end. What happened to that BMW M4?
I mean, he's been very frequent with villain bars over the course of this race, and maybe that's an attributing factor. Could well have just been a small misjudgment. It doesn't look to be major damage. Just the bumper crinkled up a little bit, the bonnet raised up slightly as well. I would imagine just a slight little bit of a tap. Riding and looking backwards from Coughlin to Thomas Gontier, who's going to be looking to close in to the German and work his way into the top 5. And we always say, and this is a point that we always sort of go back to, and especially in special events like this, right, where there's no championship, there's no prize. So what are you looking to get out of it? Obviously, the different milestones, the win, the podium, the top 5, the top 10. If you finish 4th or 5th, either one is a top 5. You don't really mind which. Thomas Gontier, at the moment, all he can sort of say is top 10. He's one position off getting that extra sort of milestone, an achievement, if you like, of getting a top 5 finish in the Bathurst 2 Hour, which definitely rolls off the tongue a little bit nicer than finishing P6.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got to say, by the way, in the chat mentions of there was a green car on the grid. Was it Rexy? No, it was not. As Coglis' fan that we're looking at here, having a bit of a moment, and some of the leaders coming through. I think that might have been Lucas Muller working his way past. That was very scary indeed. We ride on board now with Coughlin, Gontier behind. Yes, there are a few green Porsches out there. Not one of them, though, unfortunately, is Rexy. We do have a Roxy out track, but not a Rexy. I'm bitterly disappointed with that. Got to get the AO Racing Duo out there. Come on. It's fine. It's fine.
No big green monsters out on the circuit.
No. Well, there are big green monsters because it was the Manthey Porsche that.
Was that what it was? I thought it was Rexy. Yeah. All this time.
No. It was the Manthey Porsche. We've got a green one and we've got a yellow one. So we've got the big green monster, we've got the big yellow monster, and they are racing around. There's a look at Roxy. It's one of those ones I'm kind of like, part of me's like, I kind of hate it because it's a bit like, well, it's not really it's not a traditional racing livery, is it? And then part of me just loves it because I'm like, yeah, but it's not a traditional racing livery, is it? Love it.
It's a dinosaur. I love it. You won't ever see me complaining. I like it, and I like the how it's been very anthropomorphized and made real, right? Everyone sees that as a living car. I mean, generally racing fans and car fans do see them as living things, but it's been turned real, and the support, I think, and the that side of it, especially for Roxy and Rexy, has been very cool. The livery itself, yeah, cool. There's probably better ones out there in terms of racing liveries, but the story, I guess, that you can build from Rexy and Roxy is quite cool, and probably more to the point.
And
it's
the
true.
gold teeth it gets with the victories, it's always great, and you can't also forget the dragon. Is it called Spyro? What is the dragon called? The LMP. I'm assuming it's 2, isn't it?
I have no idea.
All I know is a mate of mine drives it. I've got no idea what that car's called. So shout out to John Edgar. But it's one of those ones. You just gotta love it. You gotta love it. It's something different. It's something a bit of fun, and it gets a lot of fans. And that's why we always see them out in special events like this. Why, whenever IMSA is racing, they're always getting a fair amount of attention. Even for me, I'm a fan. Anytime you do something weird and something like that with a livery, I'll sit there and I'll support it. No worries. Dausenberg's onto the rear end of Samardzic, and Dausenberg has been into the barrier roughly at the cutting a couple of laps ago. Clearly there's no major damage on the car. To the inside of the chase they go. The outside of the second part. Let's see if there is going to be the position switch or if Samardzic is going to be able to hang on. They remain side by side. Kick of oversteer coming in from Roxy in the hands of Dausenberg. Down into the final corner at Murray's. And there will be Samardzic just able to hang on.
Yeah, nicely done from Samardzic there, just to stay in front of Dausenberg. These two really not had enough of each other over this race thus far. Dausenberg now trying to set up a good exit. I think this attack has been mounting for the last couple of laps, just biding his time, waiting for an opportunity, and then the fuse gets lit in this battle once more in what is P9. Of course, they've got a bit of a gap in front and a huge gap behind, so they're free to race. There's a look to the inside from the pink Porsche of Dausenberg on Samardzic, and can't quite commit to the run to the inside of turn number 2 at Griffin's Bend. Of course, Magic will hang on to that top 10 for now. And nicely done heading into the final quarter of this race with 32 minutes left to run. Well, these two probably have been the most, the battler with the most continuity, as off the exit of the cutting once again from Doutsenberg, picking up a little bit of oversteer, clearly pushing very, very hard on the back of Samardzic and to find their way up into the top 10 then. Again, like I say, swapping positions for the best part of the last hour and a half.
I looked it up. It was Spike the Dragon. You can understand why I thought it was Spyro. I did think that was. I was like, sure, that's a copyright thing, and they're not allowed to do
Yeah,
that.
I was going to say
yeah, no, it is Spike the Dragon is the LMP2, and yeah, absolutely love it. 9 seconds between P1 and P2. Lucas Muller's got the gap down to 35 seconds behind the race leader, but obviously it's not closing down much more than that. But I do think that with the tyres that Lucas Muller's taken, it is likely to be a relatively easy run to the checker flag and to 3rd place in this race. For Bo Dixon and Tomas Ribeiro, will their tyres fall off a cliff, or will they be able to keep them going for the final 31 minutes of this race? I mean, it's one of those ones, if you look at a driver like Tomas Ribeiro, you'd sit there and you'd think, there is no way that those tyres aren't reaching the end of the race. He knows what he's doing when it comes to strategy. They race these cars an awful lot. He is, I would say, at the moment, probably one of the best drivers, if not the best driver, at least on the ranked side of this platform. I don't see that being a mistake on strategy. Gontier and Roche, though, they're going to do battle.
Yeah, around the outside for Roche. This has been boiling for quite some time. Gontier, of course, closing that gap, and the Frenchman wanting to find his way up into P5. It's going to be well, elbows out racing between the two of them. Roche just able to hang on that particular occasion. Runs in a bit deep through the cutting, and that is going to invite a slight little look there from Gontier, but no way through for the Frenchman. Again, that gap has been chipping down. Also, look out for Coughlin, the German. Again, another Porsche, so a bit of a triplet. Of course, the two Falcon liveried. And then Coughlin about 1.4 seconds off the back of Gontier. So very quickly, this could be a 1v1 turned into a 3-way battle as they rise their way through and dip down through Skyline. Gontier, again, through this section, all you're doing is basically keeping it as clean as possible, keeping it as close as possible. Slight tap to the barrier there to the left, and the momentum not working in his favour one bit. You get sent a little bit wide, then you have to slam on the anchors, and Roche is going to be breathing a sigh of relief to not feel any pressure down into the chase on this occasion. Gontier, all of that hard work now done slightly, well, undone slightly, and he's going to have to be spending the next couple laps working his way back into the fight of Roche, and also try and keep out of the clutches of Coughlin, who's closed right in on the rear end.
Just turned in a touch too early into the dipper. Easily done. I've seen that time and time again. You kind of want to turn in quite early, because when the track drops away, obviously you lose all grip on the front end. So it's one of those ones where if you turn in at what you would typically do if that part of the circuit was a completely flat bit, you're actually going to understeer into the barrier. So you almost have to preempt that by flicking it in. But then if it does grip up, if you do turn in that little bit too early, yeah, the wall's going to be there and you are going to tap it. Now, Gontier, having dealt with that, like you say, you have Coughlin to deal with. All the kids will go wild here. It's the fight 6 or 7, you know?
Beautiful.
6, 7?
Yeah, Brill. You brought that up as well. That's
isn't it?
Yeah.
I've got to be appealing and appeasing and whatnot. It's more your generation though. I don't know. It's no rubbish.
Unk status from Lewis McGlade here. I know I brought up 6 and 7 quite a lot over Macau and got absolutely rinsed by the community. They were calling me Unk. I said I was 19, and they go, yeah, still. And I'm like, that is dreadful.
Yeah, but
getting on it.
Isn't like, well, I mean, in sim racing terms, kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
There are a lot of younger drivers in the world of sim racing. Like, yeah, whatever, 6, 7 or something. I don't care.
Whatever. I had a race the other week in karting. P6 and P7 had gained 6 and 7 positions respectively by the end of the race, which did numbers for the Gen Alphas in the paddock. Yeah.
Awful scenes. Let me tell you something. I am not dropping that bad boy on any Formula E broadcast, and I'll keep that one well away from the radio coverage and your comms booth on that one as well. Not a chance we ever talk about anything like that. I don't know. No.
We like a bit of banter. We're not averse
That's
to.
too far, though.
Yeah, that's too much. Way too much. What was it? We were talking about shopping trolleys last year because you threw me under the bus as to explain what caster was, and
oh yes,
definitely
right.
was not. Was
I
not.
thought about it. I think that is probably my most devious thing that I've ever done on the broadcast. Basically, what happened? I asked Zach to describe camber and toe. And he explained camber and toe brilliantly, as you would do. And then I paused and went, so explain caster to me, knowing that it is really difficult to explain compared to the toe and cam is really easy. Caster's a tricky mistress to understand.
Yeah. I know what caster is. I know an example of it in the form of shopping trolleys, but beyond that, do not ask me because I do not have a Scooby. Yeah, these guys, of course, on the circuit probably a little bit more well versed in the implications of each of those setup choices. As Gontier, after that mistake a lap or so ago, has dropped off the back of Roche ever so slightly and fallen backwards into the clutches of Coughlin, who has been looking rather racy in that red and white Porsche, chasing after the Falcon liveried French driver. Gontier, again, probably at this point, with 25 minutes left to go, how much are you looking forwards to try and get after Roche, and more so looking in your mirrors to try and keep what you've got in that form of 6th place?
Guess who was battling on the previous lap? Yes, it's Bars and Vanderbroek. Those two have found themselves again. Damage on the front end of the BMW of Vanderbroek. He has lost the position to Willem Bars. He now sits in 12th position. Saw those two flicking around. I do suspect the damage on the front end of that BMW might be a little bit too much for him to remain in that fight with the Dutchman. Those two have battled it out pretty much over the entirety of the opening hour of this race, and now that damage on the front end of the BMW M4 might see the gap grow and grow and grow. Willem Bars got through with the Mark VDS Audi R8 up into that 12th position, and the V10 will be pushing with all its glory to build the gap to that BMW.
Indeed, so one of the no, I will say the best sounding engine in GT3, the V10.
Which
confidently.
One? Which one, the R8 or the Lambo?
The Lambo.
Yeah, it is the Lambo. Yeah. Sadly, rest in peace. Do you know what?
Yeah.
One car I think sounds great that I'd love to see more of. The Mustang. The Mustang sounds good, mate. I promise you. I can't get behind it. I'm not a massive fan of Mustangs generally, to be honest. Which I probably will be with pitchforks after me for saying that, but I'm just not a huge fan. The best part though about the Snetterton commentary box, I know you've not dabbled in the circuit commentary of circuits in the UK, so you won't get the joys of that. But the best part about the commentary box at Snetterton, directly over the pit lane speed limit line. So you get to hear every single car dropping the pit limiter and going. The Lamborghini, could listen to that all day. I'll be completely honest. Yeah, I mean, look, I will say the Mustang's got like a great rumble with it. Quite akin to the same kind of sound that you get from the AMG, but almost a little bit louder. No, it's look, you may not like Mustangs and stuff. I was a little bit questioning the Mustang addition to a GT3, and then I saw it and I thought, damn, that's a good looking car. Unfortunately, the only Mustangs that we really see too much here in the UK is the EMAC Mustang, which is, to be honest, for want of a better term, a crime. But Thomas Gontier will return it to the fight for 6th and 7th. Coughlin behind, and the gap once again closing down as the gap for the race lead has gone over 10 seconds for the first time this race. Yeah,
Ribeiro just, again, it's consistency. Bo Dixon, right, the challenge that he gave at the beginning of this race, I thought for a second that there was a chance. And to be fair to him, right, 11 seconds over an hour and 40 isn't a lot per lap. Right, so Bo Dixon isn't a million miles off, and probably on a couple of laps maybe has chipped that gap back down by a tenth or two. But what Bo Dixon can do on his best lap, Thomas Ribeiro is doing on every lap, and that's the difference. And we're only talking a tenth or two per lap over a very challenging circuit. So, you know, absolutely no discredit to Bo Dixon whatsoever. I think he has driven a phenomenally strong race. But Ribeiro, once again, proving that, I completely agree, probably the best GT3 driver on the RaceRoom platform. Well, he's proven that time and time again. I mean, to go back-to-back, Macau, 2-hour special event win, and now with 22 minutes left to go, looking the favourite to take Bathurst as well. I mean, in terms of 2 events to go and win, the test of a driver's ability, I don't really think you could do much better than those 2.
And it'll be for the 2nd year running here on the mighty mountain. Been very impressive from Ribeiro. Someone dropping in a good sounding GT3s, dropping in the Porsche as well. It is a great sounding GT3, but I will tell you something that will ruin Porsches to you and how they sound. And I'm so sad that they do not race anymore. The GTE, the RSR. I mean, if you ever heard that thing in person at full chat, that is a noise. I distinctly remember it was on a show run. It was the GT and the LMP1, the 919 hybrid, and it was at Brands Hatch in 2017, and I just popped off to the loo. And then, because I didn't think they were coming out until a bit later on in the day, and I was very excited. I was actually more excited to see them go around the track than I was even British Touring Cars. I was so excited to see them go around the track. Popped to the loo. Bear in mind, I'm in a building with closed doors and whatever. I'm in a toilet. I could still hear that GTE go around the circuit. That is how loud that car is. Such a good noise as well.
Yeah, fair play. I will say the Porsche is a very typically underrated, because it's slightly, at least in the GT3, slightly quieter, but the pops of the flat six I really like. Very, very nice sounding car to drive. You know, it's an experience. I will say the Aston is a very nice sounding car as well. Definitely has its moments. The thing that always throws me is, obviously you've got like the Ginetta, you've got the Ginetta Junior. Obviously the inline 4 does not sound great. The Ginetta V8.
Yeah, the GT4 one.
Yeah, very nice.
Great sound.
Very jealous of Luke Bennett.
Yeah, right. I hate the sound of Ginettas most of the time, because I don't think they sound trash. But that GT4 sounds so good. And yes, a friend of ours does get to throw it around the track in GT Cup, as we'll return our attention back to this in the final 20 minutes. Down the mountain they go. Gontier right under pressure from Coughlin. This is the closest fight that we have on circuit at the moment. We aren't going to get a fight for the race victory. Ribeiro is setting his sights on yet another special event victory. He's played his strategy cards right. He's played his cards on car choice, on laps in qualifying, on laps in the race. Lost the lead, but only for a short margin. I mean, I don't know how many more superlatives we can fly his way. Bo Dixon, though, I've got to say, second place to Dixon, at the moment, it is the best drive I've seen from Bo Dixon in a long time. It is very, very good from Bo Dixon right now.
Yeah, I mean, he has been, I was saying earlier, it's been a phenomenal drive that very easily has been overshadowed by Thomas Ribeiro, right? I mean, because of how good Ribeiro's done, it's easy to forget as to the job that Bo Dixon has done, but comfortably has been head and shoulders in terms of pace clear of the rest of the field easily. And like I say, per lap, hasn't been that far off Ribeiro, but in the slightest. He's not really made any mistakes. He's kept pace very, very good. He was incredibly aggressive in showcasing some fantastic racecraft in the early phases, and is now managing the tyres to keep Lucas Müller at bay in the closing 18 minutes. So yeah, remarkably impressed with what we've seen. Also Müller, of course, naturally, as you would expect on fresh tyres, has been closing the gap to Thomas Ribeiro and to Bo Dixon. The gap just after the pit stops that we sort of started following in once Müller had cleared Mikiewicz was 36 seconds to Ribeiro, and it was 28 to Dixon. He's been able to gain 5 seconds on Ribeiro and about 8 seconds on Bo Dixon. So the gap has come down, and again, the top three can all hang their heads up very, very high, as can, in fairness, the entire field. The level of determination that we've seen, apart from Christian Orban, who, of course, was at a disconnect, everyone's still running, everyone's still racing, more importantly, as well, as we see Riddell versus Roerick into the chase.
And indeed, the Rover BMW does indeed pick up the spot. Obviously, here in the UK, saying Rover BMW is a little bit tough, but It is. I remember when we used to call it Row, but it is Rover. That's how they want it to be said. But it was more because everyone was like, Row, whenever it had a crash. But that's fine. It is
quality.
Yeah. it's terrible, but look, we'll drop that one if we see it backwards at some point. We've got 17 minutes more. You're absolutely right. The determination of the field. Christian Orban out of the race, but not really through, as far as we're aware, any major fault of their own. And we've seen some great battling up and down the order. Rorik's getting to the outside and is sending it in. Can he make it to the exit of the corner? Oh my goodness! Wow. What an attempt there from Florian Rorik to get around the outside of Jonas Rydell. That was brilliant and brave going into Griffin's Bend. Just about was able to keep it out of smacking the barrier too hard and now finds his way back in 17th spot. This proves once again, doesn't matter where you are on the field, there's good racing up and down it.
Yeah, exactly. And let's not forget as well, they're fighting for 17th and 18th, but that's 17th and 18th in the world, or on the platform of RaceRoom, right? So yeah, they're in the second half of top split, but they're still in top split. So there's still a lot to be proud of, and they're racing at such an incredibly high level as well. And that's proven in the standard of driving and the standard of racing that we've been seeing. So yeah, very, very strong job, let's put it that way. A lot of commitment back towards the sharpish end of the field between Gontier and Coughlin. Of course, Coughlin doing his best to stay on tabs of Gontier, and it's just been a bit of a stalemate between the two of them. Of course, Gontier doing just enough to keep Coughlin at an arm's length back. A very short fuse, though, that will only take a small mistake from Gontier, like we saw a few laps ago, to ignite an offensive manoeuvre potentially from Ferdinand Coughlin.
Good to see it. Partners for this broadcast, of course, Traxion, over on their YouTube channel where this broadcast is also played. If you're already there, hello. We've all been watching the same broadcast, fine. I did see there was a little vote in chat, obviously about an hour ago, which was, is Tomas Rivera going to win the race? And it was amazingly 50-50. That tells me that we've got a lot of new viewers for this round. You know what I mean? If you are a brand new viewer, you've never seen a RaceRoom special event before, obviously, yeah, it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of great racing. 2 hours of some of the very best on the platform, which I think far too many people in sim racing are either unaware of or dismiss too quickly. This is a great platform with great racing on it. And you can get some good side-by-side, as we've proven a few times. That move that we saw from Rorik getting around the outside of Rydell's one of them. We saw great fighting between Tomas Ribeiro and the way he stole the race lead back off of Bo Dixon. Great fights between Samardzic and Doutsenberg, and obviously Bars and Van der Broek, to name a few of the fights we've had so far this afternoon. We get this all the time in special events, just great fights up and down the order. And
the great thing about it is, again, accessible to everyone, right? Yes, this is top split, but we've had 23 splits going into this event, I think, and upwards of 450 drivers all taking part. So if you sort of look at this going, I want a piece of that, there are plenty of opportunities, plenty of special events through the year. So get yourself on RaceRoom, like I say, free to install and plenty of free content. There's Marchenia, unfortunately, getting it all sorts of wrong just off the exit of the cutting, slightly rolling backwards down the hill. I would imagine that's a hefty little bit of understeer, although not much of an attempt to put the brakes on nor start rolling forwards again.
Yeah, that's why I'm wondering if there might be some form of technical. The car's not going to roll back too much further because it's going to hit the barrier here, and that should probably hold it. There it does. Not a worry. The thing with cars and stuff, when they do start rolling, it doesn't take much to actually hold them in spot if they're rolling pretty slowly, which is why that meme from Alt Park and GB3 a few years back with that car rolling back onto the apex of the final corner made me very angry, because you could have held that car in position with quite literally one finger, but what do I know? Like I said, Marchena, his car was not rolling back too far down the hill. Thankfully he's able to get back going again, and will try and keep the racing spirit alive by, at a bare minimum, going to find the checkered flag, which sometimes it'd be so easy to be like, do you know what, I'm bored of this race and I want to bail out and go and watch, I don't know, IndyCar qualifying, highlights of the Leeds-Man City match, something like that. Who knows? But no, you've got to keep going. You're in the race. You've got to keep going.
Yeah, you've only got 12.5 minutes left to go as well. Like, you haven't put all this practice in the last hour and 48 minutes of your life, just to quit this close. So yeah, good to see. And again, that determination, that perseverance from the majority of the field has been, I say the majority, unanimously throughout the field, has been really good. Marchena and Fan, obviously the two that are over a lap down. You've got 15 drivers still on the lead lap as well, and still pressing on. We've had a number of spins, not as many as I was anticipating though in terms of incidents and crashes, so it's been quite a clean race. Whether that can be said for the remaining 22 splits remains to be seen, of course, but at least for these guys it's been kept relatively clean in terms of drastic errors. A couple of people losing it through the mountain and that sort of thing, but all in all everyone pressing on and getting to the end, which again is half the battle. The first challenge is of course make it to the checker flag. Where you finish beyond that, of course, is just a bonus.
I said that Lucas Muller would be probably in a pretty solid position in the race, at least to his own mentality as to whether his strategies worked by taking tyres in the pit stop. If he's able to get himself within 30 seconds of Tomas Ribeiro. Now, the reason I say that is that I do think that had Muller not taken tyres, so had he gone for the same strategy that Ribeiro and Dixon had gone for, I actually am not 100% convinced that he would have finished within 25 seconds. Anyway, the fact that I think he was running about half the speed relative to Bo Dixon, right? So where Bo Dixon was losing a second to Ribeiro, I think Muller was losing an extra second, right? So it was 2 seconds off, with a second off of Bo Dixon. That gap was effectively doubled. So I think realistically at this point in the race, Muller, based on what we were seeing earlier, Muller probably would have been around the 20 to 25 seconds off anyway, and is starting to gain that time back. Could well actually finish within 20 seconds of Ribeiro, thus proving that I think it was absolutely the right call to take the tyres for him. I mean, he's pulled 20 seconds over Matej Mikulic, who we ride on board with here. Tim Roche knocking at the door to get a top 4. 10 minutes left to go, and from this point on, bearing in mind where Ribeiro will be on the lap, they'll have 6 laps, 6 times up and down the mountain from where they are. Ribeiro probably already coming down the back end of the mountain down to Forest Elbow. He will have 5 laps to go at the line.
Of course, Tim Roche was similar in Lucas Muller in the sense that he took tyres at the stop. So this has been pretty much the entire stint, 50 minutes in the making for Tim Roche. He found a way through on the likes of Gontier, Coughlin, etc., and has since been pushing very hard to get onto the back of Matej Mikulic, and has very much deserved it in terms of the consistency that we've seen from the German. Down the hill, you can get a good old sense of speed, a bit of a twitch actually from Roche as they negotiate their way down. Inconsequential in the end. Now into the final 10 minutes. This is where you'd expect that aggressive racing to come in and play a factor. Very late on the brakes from the Falcon Porsche. Puts his foot down and will try and use the slipstream, which we know is incredibly strong, especially Porsche to BMW. Works very nicely in favour of Tim Roche. We might well see a move by the time they reach the chase with just over 9 minutes left of this race.
Indeed. I think Bo Dixon's starting to struggle a little bit because that gap between Dixon and Ribeiro's grown by a couple of seconds on this lap. Here comes a look to the inside. Tim Roche using the superior grip of the 4 fresh tyres to get down the inside of Matej Mikulic, but cannot get the Porsche past. And it does seem as though Mikulic will hang on to what feels like a ticking clock. Will Roche be able to use the speed to get through? Well, that time will tell. We'll have 5 laps left to go for all these drivers, and the more that this pressure is put on, the more likely it is that Roche will do it. But then there was a bit of a slide through the final corner at Murray's that maybe has cost Roche an attempt here into Griffin's Bend. That's what he really needs to set up. He needs to be a little bit patient through the final corner, even a little bit patient through the first, and rather than trying to make a move into either of those two, needs to just make sure he's as close to the rear end of Matej Mikulic's BMW to try and make the move into Griffin's Bend. That's where the overtake would be at its best. That way you don't have to think about the car behind, because I guarantee he'll pull more than a second over the top.
Yeah, exactly. It's also that thing of if you throw a half-hearted move into a corner where you can't really get a move done, all you're going to be doing is losing yourself time. I understand applying pressure and maybe selling some fake dummies and looking to the inside to apply some of that psychological pressure, but ultimately, you know, the overtake is planned a few corners beforehand. And yeah, you're right, you want to get it done so that you've got the track position up the mountain, because then you're in control of the momentum. Well, I'm sure Tim Roche will absolutely know that, but time of the essence. He's only got a few attempts at it as a huge snap of oversteer sideways down the hill at the bottom end of the mountain as they descend onto the Conrod Straight. Still able to keep it fairly tidy despite a huge amount of commitment going into the braking zone. Forest Elbow now in the slipstream once more. Matej Mikovic will be looking in his mirrors, that gap closing remarkably. Looking to the inside goes the BMW, so it's around the outside of the chase for Roche, who's going to soar his way through. Definitely got the grip and the agility down the inside of the chicane, and well, as long as he can get that one stopped, it's his 4th position to go and take heading into the final couple of laps.
Yeah, great through the fastest corner in Australian motorsport, but Matej Mikovic will be remaining close. A little bit wide from the apex there at Murray's for Roche. And if this BMW could keep in the slipstream and keep relatively close, there could be a potential attempt up Mountain Straight, but that was a poor run through Hell Corner. It's called Hell Corner for a reason. It is a it's 90 degrees left-hander. Doesn't seem particularly difficult, but it is hell. It is literal hell. It is such a hard corner, and you carry the speed all the way up to Griffin's Bend, and if you don't get it right, well, you end up where Matej Mikovic is, and the chances of going past Roche again have gone, and now the German will be able to run away comfortably as we'll jump back up to our race leader. 3 laps to go at the line, a little bit of traffic to navigate, in a very comfortable position in this afternoon's race to seal out a 2nd Bathurst crown.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think any description of this race from Tomas Ribeiro would really do it justice, and just how clinical that he's been from start to finish. I mean, we haven't really seen much of him, and for the best of reasons. He gave us, alongside, of course, Bo Dixon, a fantastic opener to this race, and well, once they settled, it was just these two giving everyone else a demonstration as to how to drive around the Mountain Panorama circuit. Of course, Lucas Müller, that late charge on fresh tyres, has definitely demonstrated his pace in this race. He's up there in P3 and definitely chosen the more favourable, I would imagine, of the 2 strategies of whether or not to take tyres or not. And again, the top 3, like I say, just giving everyone else that demonstration of consistency and what it takes to be a podium finisher in the RaceRoom Bathurst 2 hours. Ribeiro, though, the class of the bunch. As even further down, the battling continues. We've got the likes of Johnson, Norms and Blanchard, all of whom 2 laps down, but all of whom are still fighting away for P22. Like we say, competition throughout the entire field. Doesn't matter if you're first or P22, there's a race to be had.
Absolutely, and Johnson making a bit of a meal of Forest Elbow, but clearly the R8's running pretty strong in a straight line, and Norms is closing in bit by bit. Will he be able to get through right onto the rear end of the V10 Audi R8 as they head through the chase there, the fastest corner of Australian motorsport, and just manages to wrestle it to the apex. We ride on board with Mathieu Blanchard in the big yellow monster. Unfortunately, a driver that was expecting to be battling in the top 10 this afternoon, and down in 24th position. Not been an ideal evening of racing, but a couple of laps away from the checkered flag. Could have a couple of positions yet to gain from this race.
Yeah, there's more to be had, and again, it's experience. There's probably a lot of lessons to be had from Bathurst, especially for the rest of the year. If Blanchard is competing in any of the championships that will be taking part on RaceRoom in 2026, good experience to be had side by side just in front as Johnson slows down tremendously to allow Norms and Blanchard through. Now, I know slowdowns are a thing in RaceRoom. I'm just curious as to where he potentially would have picked one up. I think that was an intentional thing, just to let the 2 of them through, weirdly enough. Not entirely sure as to that one, but nonetheless, Norms and Blanchard go through and they're free to fight for P22.
Maybe just wanted to cruise this one out to the checkered flag and enjoy the race. Enjoy the running around, sun setting behind you. Just cruise round and enjoy more laps on this magnificent circuit. We are approaching the end of what has been a great special event. Rydell and Tarrant are very close to each other again, and Rydell been passed by Rorick recently, and the Rover BMW is under an awful lot of pressure from the Porsche of Tarrant, who has
of course given us quite a lot of action throughout the field. Of course, had the spin about, I want to say 40 minutes in. I genuinely have no idea at what point it was. I remember he spun, but yeah, it could happen in the first half, could happen in the second half. Jen, who can tell you, but nonetheless, he was at the back end of the field, P26 of those that were still running, and has quietly tipped his way through. Was 19th, now it's 18th, down the inside of turn number 2. Stefan Terutz, and tips Riedel through in a nice tidy move. Again, one that wasn't too hardly fought for Riedel. Again, P18, P19, not a large amount of difference in terms of the finishing order between those two. So not the most valiant of defences from Riedel, as Terutz takes off another position. And like I say, it's just been a quiet comeback drive. We've seen a couple of them, the likes of Thibaut Pellet, again, slowly driving his way up the field, outside of the top 20 at some points, now up into the top 14, and pretty much looks where he would probably remain to stay. However, Jack Barton is within about a second and a half of Thibaut Pellet, so maybe another battle to be had a little bit further up the field, heading into the penultimate lap of this race, with Thomas Ribeiro now 14 seconds clear, nearly a Bo Dixon.
You're absolutely right. Penultimate lap these drivers are on. Thomas Ribeiro is about to get ready for one final run around the mountain. He begins the last lap of the race, has lapped quite a few drivers on this field, more than I was expecting, to be perfectly honest. It's been a dominant performance from the Portuguese driver, and he's leading by 13 seconds. No tyre changes on the pit stop, just fuel being taken onto this Ferrari 296. 65 seconds left to go on the clock. This is the last lap.
It is indeed, and a bit of a parade lap more than anything for Thomas Ribeiro. And again, like I said, it cannot be understated as to just how good of a drive this has been. Of course, it'll be back-to-back Bathurst 2 hours in RaceRoom, off the back of a victory in Macau last time we saw him, just at the tail end of 2025. Probably two of the hardest races to go and win on this platform, and he has been the favourite both on all three occasions to go and do it. Nearly 13 seconds clear of the field, has nailed the strategy, has nursed the tyres throughout the last 2 hours of racing, and, well, despite being challenged at the beginning, has been able to keep his head nice and clear. And again, you think for a moment he's losing control, but completely intentional, completely in control. It's the level of precision that's needed to be as quick as Ribeiro is.
Magnificent through McPhillamy. A bit of opposite lock 2 hours into the race. Tyres struggling, screaming as they scramble for grip through Forest Elbow. The timer has hit 0. He's 14 seconds clear on what is going to be yet another dominant performance from the Portuguese driver. We've seen him win an awful lot, whether it was in the RaceRoom Super Touring Championship, whether it was at Macau, and plenty of other events as well. We have had Colin Blankenberg take 2 of the titles here at Bathurst, winning in 23 and 24. 25 went the way of Thomas Ribeiro, and in yet another dominant performance, 26 is going to go the way of Ribeiro as well. He is going to win the 2 hours of Bathurst in dominant style. Thomas Ribeiro is once again a winner in a RaceRoom special event, and here comes some donuts, I'm sure.
What a drive. Bo Dixon, though, cannot be forgotten, overshadowed slightly by the definition of domination from Thomas Ribeiro. But Bo Dixon, again, a comfortable P2, a challenge to the titan that is Thomas as well in the early phases. Lucas Muller, on his return to the platform off the back of a very successful campaign in 2025, finishes P3. And again, you have to give the credit where credit is due in terms of the strategy. The smoke piling up on the runoff at turn number 1. Well, probably some very sweaty sim races after 2 hours up and down the mountain 60 times here at Bathurst.
Indeed, big donuts coming in. Thomas Ribeiro's already done his celebration and has carried on to enjoy the lap around the mountain. Tim Roche will be the next one across the line, having got past Matej Mikiewicz late on in the race. Gontier will keep Coughlin at bay. There is Mikiewicz into, I mean, I don't know if we can give it a donut-related name without breaching any copyrights, but certainly it's making me hungry this afternoon.
It's not a high bar, to be honest.
True, this car's really making me hungry.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was a nice little power slide there. Oh my word, that was lovely off the back. Some very hot tyres to do it, but 2 hours, there's the results. Indeed,
the race results that see Thomas Ribeiro taking another victory here at Bathurst. The Bathurst 2 hour will go to his hand for the second consecutive year. Bo Dixon will finish in second position with Lucas Muller rounding out the podium. The fastest lap going to the hands of Bo Dixon leading those early couple of laps of running here at Bathurst, with Rush, Mikiewicz, Gontier, Coughlin, Weiss, Spiegel and Samardzic being the top 10. Samardzic involved in a great fight to grab 10th back after being muscled out the way by Matej Mikiewicz towards the end of the opening lap. Samardzic was able to just sneak his way back into the top 10. Those finishes we'll see pop up behind, but Zach, a great race from our top contributors, from our bottom contributors, from everyone on the field. Christian Orban, the sole retiree.
Yeah, I mean, to have the sole retiree be someone who left us because of a disconnect and not even of his own volition. I mean, to have the 26 people that were able to keep continuing on in the race make it to the checker flag, I think is incredibly impressive, and again speaks volumes as to the level that we have at the top flight of RaceRoom Esports. And again, Thomas Ribeiro proving that he is the cream of the crop and largely at the moment untouchable in RaceRoom ranked events.
Of course, we'll be able to do it in our other RaceRoom ranked events, special events throughout the year. I'm sure we'll be having quite a few. We had Interlagos and Macau round out the year last year. I'm sure we'll be having Spa appearing a bit later on, one at the Nürburgring. We always have a little bit of a race at the Nordschleife as well. A couple of other, anything else you want to throw into the mix on those special events? What else do you want to see?
I think we tick all the boxes, to be honest. Maybe a bit of a meme race would be quite good. I know that on April Fools they have the rocket-powered shopping carts, so maybe we can have a bit of a battle in those. See if Ribeiro can whip his way around a supermarket car park would be quite cool.
Rocket-powered shopping carts. When you say that, it does start to sound like the predecessor to Rocket League, doesn't it? I can't remember what the name of that was. Supersonic acrobatic rocket-powered battle cars, something like that, wasn't it? It's something in that kind of.
What
vein.
A mouthful that is.
Who knows? Either way, we are all done here today. Tomas Ribeiro having won a second Bathurst race in consecutive years. An excellent drive from him in his Ferrari 296. If you've enjoyed today's racing, obviously feel free to jump on to RaceRoom, get yourselves involved, and maybe we'll see you out on circuit in the next special event. From myself, Lewis McGlade, from Zach Sweeney, for everyone here at Traxion has been bringing you the broadcast, and for everyone at RaceRoom for bringing you the event, thank you so much for joining us here this evening, and we'll see you next time. Until then, though, bye-bye.